terrible outcome and disaster. Both television and radio serve as excellent mediums with up-to-the-minute storm path information in the wake of a hurricane. Another method of tracking a hurricane may be only arm's length away. Your smartphone or tablet can be your most valuable tool before, during, and after a storm, providing countless numbers of apps with crucial hurricane information. Many apps allow you to track storms with moving radar and satellite imagery, plus offer alerts, current conditions, forecasts, advisories, and even video.
This hurricane preparedness tip was brought to you by your community radio station, Radio Cayman 89.9 FM.
In answer to his question about the subjects,
there are more questions than answers.
Radio Cayman's Talk Today.
oh, what a compliment. For that, I thank you.
What is happening now? There are homeless and hungry.
Now it's time for us to stand up to God or we fall to nothing.
It's time now for Radio Cayman's Talk Today. If you're ready to talk, we're willing to listen.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
Radio Cayman's Talk Today.
Listening to the general public, what the public is saying.
Good afternoon. Welcome to Talk Today. I'm Kathy Miller, filling in for your regular host, Sterling Dwayne Banks, today, Wednesday, June 28th. Our numbers to call are 1-800-534-8255, 949-8037, 949-6990, or you can WhatsApp me at 925-3261. I sound a little out of breath right now, and boy, I actually am, so I hope I can take this next minute here to recover as we give you the disclaimer, and then I can welcome you to our first guest, which is going to be Felicia McLean, Operations Manager from Jasmine, and Natalie Sharp, Palliative Care Physician, also from Jasmine.
Talk Today is brought to you by Subway, open 24 hours in Countryside, Anderson Square in Georgetown, and Centennial Towers in West Bay. And by the Ministry of District Administration, Tourism and Transport. Explore your history, explore your land, explore your sister islands. And Cayman Airways, call them on 949-2311 to book your nonstop flights to Los Angeles and Panama.
Radio Cayman's Talk Today, the Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program. We ask our listeners to avoid statements or comments which are abusive, derogatory, malicious, or defamatory. Do not use any indecent language or make any statement which is false or misleading. Email talktoday@candw.ky or call 1-800-534-8255. Courtesy of Live Communication. Let your voice be heard. Radio Cayman's Talk Today.
Good afternoon and welcome to Radio Cayman's Talk Today program. It is Wednesday, June 28th, and our numbers to call are 1-800-534-8255, 949-8037, 949-6990, or you can WhatsApp, call, or message us at 925-3261. And in this segment of Talk Today up until 1 p.m., I'm welcoming from Jasmine, we have Felicia McLean, she's the Operations Manager, and Natalie Sharp, Palliative Care Physician. Good afternoon, ladies, and welcome to Talk Today. How are you doing?
Yep, good to be here.
Good. We're all working away still as we're waiting for this interview to start, right?
Yep.
We know we have you on regularly and we're talking about hospice care and palliative care with Jasmine, and I know that you have, for myself, had to differentiate a couple of times between the two, but you're going to have to again. And so we're here to kind of debunk some myths, really understand the difference with hospice and palliative care.
Yeah.
And
yeah, we basically were, Dr. Sharp brought to our attention, she's been doing a lot. We're really grateful to have her a part of our team now. She's been doing a lot in the hospitals and joining in with the kind of, what's it called? The review board at HSA.
The multidisciplinary meetings, the tumor boards, yes.
Yeah, so that, and so she's mingling with more of the doctors there. And then also we were able to do a presentation at Health City recently. And from the presentation, there were 2 patients that she thought would be amazing for palliative care support. And the doctors agreed, based on what we offer, that they would be great for palliative care support. And when both doctors called the patients, they were like, oh no, I can't go to hospice. I'm not there. Are you telling me that I'm dying now? Like, the idea of the palliative care support just meant end of life support is what they kind of heard. And so we figured it'd be just timely as we continue to try and educate the community about what palliative care is and how Jasmine offers that service, which is different from end of life care, to support their quality of life. We're just going to take a stab at that today.
All right. So what is the main difference here then?
Well, so we separate palliative care from hospice care, right? And so what palliative care really is, it's really providing support to anyone dealing with a serious illness. And it can be at any point in time in your illness. There are often times when if you're sick and you need some help with something, whether it's pain, whether it's shortness of breath, whether it's nausea, this could be whether you're stage 1 or whether you're stage 4. And what palliative care does is it helps you with whatever is going on that illness is causing, whether it's physical problems, such as what I described before, whether it's emotional problems, whether you're having difficulty coping or dealing with or adjusting to this new thing that's going on. And so what palliative care does is at any point in time, we can provide support, we can provide help, we can be there for you. Another physician and another nurse just to help and join your team, not instead of your team, right? Mm-hmm. We're not taking over, we're not coming in after everything else has been done. We are joining in with the team to help to enhance your care. So what I like to say is palliative care is about enhancing care, not withdrawing care. And so that's what palliative care is. Hospice care is essentially a small subset of what palliative care and it's providing that same care in somebody who is at the end of life, all right? But it's really just a small part of what palliative care is. It's not all of it, and we do so much more.
So when we say end of life, are we thinking more so people within a more senior age range, or it could just be a condition?
Well, I think those are what these questions here and these myths are that we're trying to debunk. So I think we should probably
I think going on for your question, I think which one was it now? So one of the myths that are out there, and these come from, I think, the Australia website. Like, there's nothing new to Cayman Islands. We're all battling the same thing around the world. But one of the myths is that palliative care is only provided to older people. And in true, that's not the case. The fact is people of all ages can develop a life-limiting illness. So a baby is born with a congenital disease that they're not going to be able to live a long life with. They're eligible for palliative care support throughout their whether they live a year, 2 years, 5 years. They're actually eligible if their symptoms aren't controlled, if the family are struggling to deal with it. So anybody at any age can get support if they have this life-limiting illness that is causing them distress, or the family aren't coping. And so that's one of the things. Palliative care provides, like we said, support for people of any age, including babies, children, young adults, so teenagers. It really, people quite often think, end of life, old people, it's for old people. But it's not. That's not anywhere near the definition of hospice or palliative care. It simply is a myth.
Yep. I have a patient, she's 27 and she has stage 4 breast cancer, but she's doing well. She's been on chemo now for about 3 or 4 years, but she is also receiving palliative care from me as a physician, just because she kind of just wanted somebody to help her with, if she's having difficulty with her chemo, she had some nausea, vomiting the couple of days after her chemo, she just likes for us to be there, deciding what kind of treatment she needed to do. But did she have to do the surgery that was recommended? Should she just have gone straight to chemo? Those kind of decisions, helping her with making decisions for somebody who is so young. She wanted to talk about fertility issues, what should she plan for? What can she expect? And then, her husband also, is having difficulty coping because they're a young couple. They recently got married just shortly before they found out about this diagnosis. And so they needed someone to talk to about just how to deal with it. And so we're providing support for this young woman and her husband as they're going through this. But she's not dying. She's doing very well. And, she's coming along quite nicely, but it just needed an extra level of support. So.
I want to ask a question in between the questions.
Yeah, sure. Absolutely.
Go ahead.
Where do you draw the line between what you would say is palliative care and then like a counseling for people that just need somebody to talk to?
Well, that's a good question. So a part of palliative care training is learning about communication and counseling. So, I have been trained to deal with specific situations related to advanced illness, related to situations like these. But there are times I can't do everything. I'm not a psychologist. So there are times where we do see that, this situation needs a little bit more than we can provide. And we do refer on if needed, but we are trained to have some, to have some specific conversations and some difficult conversations and to just kind of help that way.
And going along with that, for Jasmine, we actually are blessed to have a grant that R3 gave us for grief counseling. And grief doesn't just happen after a loss. There's this thing called anticipatory grief. So this husband with his wife and all the things that might be going through his head as they're dealing with this disease, he might have anticipatory grief of what's going to happen if she doesn't make it, if the treatment doesn't work, what is that going to look like, and just needs someone to talk to. So having the grief support that we offer at Jasmine, they can get up to 8 free sessions with that. And then we have a memory circle kind of group that deals with it as well. So it's just providing avenues for people to talk if they need to talk, or get the information they need to get, so they're not going through this disease by themselves. Because the time they spend in the physician's office for the oncologist's office is going to be short. They're in there for a treatment plan. What do you do, and how are you doing, and that's it. The palliative care is going to journey with you. If you did need home visits, they'd be at home. If you just need extra visits with the physician, you can get that. If you just need a call-in support, how are you doing, what's going on? A regular clinic doesn't have the staff or the time to do that. That's where palliative care shines.
Okay, because that was going to be another question. So is there a threshold then that we know that we've reached a certain threshold for a patient that, the regular doctors or, home kind of support can't offer anymore, when that does turn to palliative care? Because it could be different for everybody, right? Some people,
I think one of the words that you say about turn to,
Yes.
turn to isn't quite the right word.
No.
Okay.
So there's one of this about, I think, this one.
So what we're trying to say is we're not changing from regular care. It's not turning to palliative care. Palliative care is alongside it, is a part of your regular care. I think what does change is how much of along the journey, how much is palliative care and how much is the other care. Sometimes you may need palliative care visits, to see your palliative care person once every couple of months, because you're doing mostly okay. You have your regular team managing your heart disease, kidney disease, your cancer, and every now and then the palliative care physician comes and joins and is a part of that care. However, there's some times where you might need to see the palliative care team, once a month. There's some times where you might need once a week. So the ratios may change, and how often you need to see each member of your team may change, but it shouldn't be either or. It's just a matter of how much of one do you need or how much of the other. Yeah.
All right, we're about to go to a commercial break, and I just want to remind our listening audience that if you have any questions in relation to palliative care, hospice care, any kind of thoughts that you have, like I had a couple. So, and we're debunking these myths here today in this segment of Talk Today. So do give us a call at 1-800-534-8255, 949-8037, 949-6990, or you can WhatsApp us at 925-3261, and we'll be back with Jasmine right after this commercial break.
Wouldn't it have been grand if you had purchased land 30 years ago? It may not be 2020, but a perfect vision has never been more clear. Cayman Brac and Little Cayman, poised for growth with an eye on the future. Your land, your history, your future. Discover all that our sister islands have to offer.
I've got some beautiful clothes. I know just where they go. Puritan Cleaners.
Puritan Cleaners, now using the most popular and eco-friendly cleaning solvents. 2 convenient locations to serve you: Savannah Countryside and Eastern Avenue, Georgetown. Drive-through, rain or shine, free pickup and delivery services available. Call Puritan Cleaners, 949-7104. Also ask about our in-house discounts. Puritan Cleaners, you feel good when you look good.
Puritan Cleaners, 949-7104. That's 949-7104. Barry's Golden Jerk, the Cayman Brac sensation, ranked the #1 restaurant in Cayman Brac by TripAdvisor and home of the authentic jerk. Barry's Golden Jerk, serving large portions of the best jerk chicken and pork. Open Wednesday, Friday, and Saturday near the airport, or call 917-6713. Barry's Golden Jerk. It's simply better.
Now, more than ever, supporting your immune system is crucial to helping your body fight off illnesses like the common cold, the flu, and COVID-19. At ValueMed Pharmacy on Walkers Road and in Buttontown, we carry all the essential vitamins and minerals to help support your immune system and improve your overall health. Some of our top immunity support picks are vitamin C, vitamin D, zinc, elderberry, and quercetin, or the popular 7-in-1 immunity support. Our pharmacists are always on hand to help guide you and answer any questions. Visit ValueMed Pharmacy on Walkers Road or Buttontown. Live happy, live healthy with ValueMed Pharmacy.
The offices of dermatologist Dr. Wayne Porter
We'll be taking appointments from July 9th through 15th at his Crew Road Clinic. Appointment slots are limited. Whether you're seeking advanced skincare, Botox, filler, cosmetic skin enhancements, or simply looking to reduce wrinkles, Dr. Porter offers a full-service dermatology and dermatological surgery practice. For more information, email dr.porterkiman@gmail.com or call 946-9020 to book your appointment today. That is 946-9020.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Good afternoon and welcome back to Talk Today. I'm Kathy Miller, filling in for Sterling Dwayne Ebanks. And on this segment of Talk Today, we are talking with Jasmine about palliative care and hospice care, and we are debunking some of the myths that are out there. And in studio this afternoon, we have Felicia McLean. She's the operations manager, alongside Natalie Sharp, palliative care physician. And ladies, right before the break, we debunked at least one of those myths, right? We debunked one of them. And I know we touched on it a little bit because you'd mentioned in the first part of our segment today that there was recently 2 people that were referred for, it was palliative care? And they thought, no, you're sending me to die. Like, this is the end of my life. Can you touch on that? Because that is a strong, even our director said that to me earlier today, that she has to debunk that myth with people that's not what it's about. So that is a very strong sentiment that is in the community.
And it's not just in the Cayman Islands. It's unfortunately for a long time, because hospice is one type of palliative care, people will use the word palliative care and say, your loved one now, we're getting to the stage now where I think you should involve palliative care. That is the error. We're not getting to the stage to involve palliative care. Palliative care was an option from day one. If you were struggling with your symptoms, if you were struggling with a diagnosis, if you're struggling with, how to tell your kids, role reversal, nausea, vomiting, weakness, whatever, it is eligible to work with your care plan from diagnosis if you need that help. You may not. You may be fine with the diagnosis and your doctor and you manage really, really well with your symptoms. And then at some point in time along the journey, it's a bit rougher, your symptoms get worse, you might need some help, and then palliative care could support and then come back out again. Palliative care is not the end of everything. It is a support of quality of life throughout the disease process. It's only hospice, which is end of life care, that because we've done such a good job when we came in hospice care to educate our lovely community about being a hospice provider and what that is, that we're now struggling to help them to understand that there are 2 forms of care. You could be admitted for palliative or you could be admitted for end of life. And I'm going to say end of life because it's clearer than saying hospice. So it's a palliative referral or an end of life referral. And then there's support and lots of other things around that we do. But that's kind of your 2 things that are, where you're at. And palliative does not mean it's the end. It means you could benefit from some support.
Is there any other reason people would refuse palliative care? Like, do you ever find that? I mean, I know you had 2 recent, but, that was because they thought. It's
really that. I mean, you'd be end of life care when people, when as I think the word you mentioned earlier was withdrawing everything, is usually what's associated with end of life care. We're gotten to a point in stage of your disease process where the medication is no longer benefiting you. We're going to withdraw it so you can have a more comfortable last couple of days, months, whatever it is. And that for a lot of people who have faith feels like they're giving up on life and they're not fighting anymore. They need to fight to the end. So even when they get to that stage, it's like, I don't want to give up yet. And so sometimes that referral to a hospice means I'm giving up hope on life and I'm accepting the reality of end of life. But that is not the case with a palliative care referral. Palliative care does not mean that you're going to die today, tomorrow, in 6 months. It means you have a chronic or life-limiting illness that's affecting your quality of life or can affect it from time to time, and we're here to support.
All right. Thank you.
I do think, another answer to your question, another reason, at least worldwide in other countries, why people don't accept the palliative care referral is because, medical care is just so expensive already. Right. You have your doctor's visits, you have your treatments, you have your scans, you have your blood tests. All of those things have to be paid for at some point. And so a referral to another thing, palliative care, is another thing that, has to be, paid for, either, by insurance or out of pocket or however else, that's done. And so that's a barrier for a lot of people in a lot of countries to receiving the palliative care that they need. But here, at least, we are offering palliative care free of charge to anybody who lives here in the Cayman Islands. So I don't want that to be a barrier for people here, because this is something you can receive to enhance your care, and we don't charge for it.
You made a really good point, yeah. And so besides not being able to afford it, in the U.S., the model for the U.S. is when you get when you're on curative care, you can't get hospice care because it's like double dipping. One is aiming to
What's curative care?
So you're still getting chemotherapy, you're still getting dialysis, you're getting things that are going to help you live with that disease or beat that disease as best you can. Okay. And then when you no longer can, then they can pick up what they call their Medicare hospice benefit. And so you can't get both. You can't. So once hospice takes over your care in the U.S., they control the medicines you can have, and they're not going to pay thousands of dollars for chemotherapy. They're just going to pay for medicines to keep you comfortable. So now you can no longer have some of the treatment that you would want to have. And so that's another misconception because of that happening in the U.S. It's not the case here in the Cayman Islands. You can still get chemotherapy right up till the day you died if you want, but that wouldn't affect whether Jasmine would support you however we can through your disease.
I think pointing out that it's not a costly, it doesn't cost anything to anybody who might need palliative care service. That's a huge thing, because unless you're maybe with Cineco, a lot of people are afraid just to go to the hospital. I mean, you get ill once a year and then there goes your benefit, right? And it's so serious. It doesn't matter what's going on. I came home a few days ago and found a technician that was working in my house writhing in pain outside from cramps. It was dehydration. And he wouldn't go he was terrified to go to the hospital. He's like, no, I'll be fine. And I'm like, something could happen to you. It's heat stroke, dehydration. I don't know what's going on. And it was that fear, ma'am, I can't afford to go to the hospital. And I'm like, so that fear is so there. And I can't imagine if you have an illness or something that really needs a lot of treatment and you do need palliative care and you just think, I can't afford it. So if the option is there, definitely talk to your doctors, ask about it. Talk to people at Jasmine. You guys are very easy to get in touch with, and I'm sure are very available to give the information to those who are seeking assistance, right? Now, another question that we're going to go to debunk. If I receive palliative care, it means I can't get any more treatment for my illness.
Yeah. Which I think we just kind of touched on. Palliative care is in addition to other forms of care. Whatever other form of care you're getting, if you need palliative care, you need palliative care, and we will provide it.
Yep. So people on dialysis, which we don't have as many patients that I personally feel we should have, because most of our dialysis patients will never get a kidney transplant. So they're living on dialysis until it no longer works for them, which means that they're going to dialysis maybe twice a week, maybe 3 times a week, to allow them to continue to live. They must have stresses in that whole situation of role reversal, burdened on families, the shunt not working, like the stuff that they use not working, and they could benefit from support, even if it's a once a month check-in with a palliative person to say, this is what's going on. I don't know what to do. This is normal. This is not normal. They shouldn't have to go it alone. And yes, they have amazing nurses at the hospital that kind of journey with them, but that's when they're there. But then there's still a home side of things that they may never even see into. So it's one of the blessings that we as the Jasmine nurses get to do, because a lot of the patients that we do see at home, we get to learn more about who they are, what matters to them, to really, help them pick the best course of treatment for their what they're dealing with, because we know them. We know more about them than if you're just seeing them in a sterile environment, And so, we can't stress it enough that it's not a either or.
Right. Just to give another example and I like giving examples because I think it helps to
understand,
to paint a picture. But we had a patient recently who was, had reached advanced kidney failure, and she needed to start dialysis, but she was just scared. She knew people who had started dialysis hadn't done so well. And so she was referred to us from the hospital, and they're like, we think this woman needs dialysis, but she's not ready yet. And so we saw her in the hospital, then we went and visited her when she was at home. We sat with her, we spoke to her. We helped manage her symptoms that she was having during that time, but we just spoke with her. We kind of, just listened to what her issues were, and then eventually she decided, okay, I'm going to go do the dialysis. And then she got sorted, got started. We helped her through those first few treatments, and she's like, okay, well, this wasn't so bad. It wasn't as bad as I was expecting. I'm glad I did it. But I think it was easier for her because she had our support going through that and making that decision, as opposed to if it was just, well, either do it or you don't do it, and that's it. It's
and the physicians at the hospital, they don't have the time. When you're an
Yeah.
inpatient, they're going to the next person, and there's no fault to them. They're there for a purpose. Everyone has its purpose in there, and Jasmine and palliative service has its purpose to journey with the patients
Right.
and the families to help them through the process. And just make that process simpler and easier.
I think
so. We still see this lady once a month, and she's doing well. Yeah,
excellent. And she's on dialysis.
And she's on her dialysis.
And hopefully managing her symptoms just as well.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
She's doing well.
Okay, excellent. I think an important thing that you pointed out there was you're able to go into that person's home and speak with them as well. So you pointed out the sterile environment that they might be, with a doctor, and it can be very uncomfortable. I remember having to go to a doctor's office, and I'm supposed to have all these questions, and all of a sudden I just don't. The questions aren't there, and it's anxious, and I almost feel like I'm being pushed out for the time, as you mentioned, Felicia. So it's so important that you're able to go and speak with somebody in an environment that they're comfortable in, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's one of the great benefits as well.
And I think based on so for example, for a palliative care new patient visit, when we're seeing a new patient, my visits are an hour. Your patient comes in and they're given a whole hour, and we just talk. We get to know each other, and then we talk about what's going on, which is not your usual amount of time for a doctor's visit. And because that's just part of what we do.
And it's still free. It's at the hospital,
Yes.
but it's still a free service provided by Jasmine. HSA currently allows us the space to use, which we're very grateful for, and we're hoping to have some at Health City pretty soon as well. But these are just outpatient doctor's office visits, but ones that aren't rushed, ones that are an hour long, so that she can really get an understanding of what you understand about your disease process, where you are, how you're coping, and then deal with whatever issues that may come up.
And that could kind of help the patient in the sense of they don't have to travel anywhere else for that extra appointment, right? They know it's all right there, and especially when you're already burdened with,
that's the
health.
plan.
And I think that's a great incentive for the patients. You mentioned you wish you had more dialysis patients that you could work with in regards to palliative care. Is there a possibility to do some sort of like an outreach to that unit?
We're doing it. It's baby steps, but we're getting there. It is on our list of stuff to do. We've done some education with the head nurse, and we've got a new doctor there that we're starting to try to work with, and just educate of how we can partner with them, and not okay, we're at that point now, we need to give it over to them. That's the biggest thing we're trying to change.
Okay. We have to go to our next commercial break, and when we return, we will finish up a couple more debunking questions that we have, and we'll go to a commercial break, and then we'll be back with Jasmine.
They say variety is the spice of life. And that's why at Subway, we're introducing the new Boneless Hot Sub. Say what? The premium sub brings new ingredients like spicy breaded boneless chicken, French's crispy fried onions, and buffalo wing sauce, bringing a zesty and flavorful experience with every bite. Add some of your favorite veggies, cheese, and ranch sauce of your choice of freshly baked bread for the ultimate boneless hot sub. For a little spice in your life, try the new Boneless Hot Sub from Subway.
So good and tasty.
And make it a meal with a drink and chips or cookies. Subway. Eat fresh.
Summer Swim Camp, Summer Swim Camp. It's that time of year again. Learn a lifetime skill, not a project. Unleash your creativity at Creative Fashion School for your Sewing Summer Camp 2023. Develop a long life skill, a safe environment to express your creativity and meet new friends. Learn the art of sewing and more. Age 6 to 18. Enroll now for unforgettable 5-week summer camp experience. Camp start July 10th to August 11th, 8 a.m. to 1 p.m. Cost is $250 per week. Material and snack included. Join us at Creative Fashion School for a summer filled with sewing fun and more. Call 9280344 or visit our website at www.thecreativefashionschool.com. See you there.
You know, as a little girl, I dreamt of traveling to faraway places and foreign lands. And tell you what though, no more dreaming. This summer, I going flying with Cayman Airways. How blessed are we in the Cayman Islands to have a very own national airline? Girl, you can fly to so many international destinations without the hassle of connecting flights. On top of Jamaica, Cuba, and Honduras, you got non-stop flights from Cayman to New York, Miami, Tampa, and even Denver, Los Angeles, and now Panama. Going to be a little cafe con leche and Hollywood Squares for this old gal this summer.
Make your travel dreams come true with Cayman Airways, offering non-stop flights for non-stop adventures in Panama, LA, and many more places in between. For details and to book, call 949-2311, contact a travel agent, or visit CaymanAirways.com.
Homeowners, protecting your family and property is crucial during the season, and you should always assess insurance needs long before a storm makes landfall. Most insurers won't issue new policies or increases when a storm is imminent. Cayman Insurance Center's team of professionals can help owners like you find the most comprehensive coverage and competitive rates. Call the insurance professionals at Cayman Insurance Center 949-4657 or email info@cic.com.ky. Don't take chances with your family's future or your valuable assets. Call Cayman Insurance Center's insurance professionals today at 949-4657.
There you go, sir. Thanks for choosing JN Money Transfer.
Boy, thanks to JN Money Transfer, I can stay right here in Cayman and pay mama bills back home in Jamaica. Her water, light, phone, and other bills never late. Every month I pay everything in one place.
Make payments to over 30 companies in Jamaica through JN Money Transfer. Fast, affordable, convenient. Call 1-800-744-1163 for details.
Health behaviours and lifestyle choices such as diet and smoking can be risk factors for non-communicable diseases. The STEPS 2023 National Health Survey will allow the Ministry of Health and Wellness to gather important data on the health of the nation, including these risk factors. This information will inform our plans for the health needs of Cayman's residents, allowing us to better serve our population. Learn more by logging on to www.gov.ky/STEPS.
Listening to the general public.
The Cayman Islands foremost listeners participation program.
Radio Cayman Talk Today.
Because
There are more questions than answers.
waiting to take your calls right now.
What the public is saying.
Good afternoon. Welcome back to Talk Today. I'm Kathy Miller, filling in for Sterling Dwayne Ebanks. You have a couple of minutes left to get your questions in if you would like to ask the ladies from Jasmine any questions you might have about hospice or palliative care, any ideas or thoughts you might have in your head that you're just not quite sure how things work. Give us a call, 1-800-534-8255, 949-8037, 949-6990, or WhatsApp us at 925-3261. And to be honest, I haven't even checked the WhatsApp, so I'm about to do that right now. So let me go to a couple of the final myth questions that we have here. And one of these questions now is, hospice and palliative care is only suitable for people with cancer. Is
Not
that
true. So palliative care is suitable for anyone who is suffering from a serious illness that needs help.
Sorry, say that again?
Sorry. Palliative care is suitable for anyone suffering with a serious illness that needs help.
Okay.
And so with conditions such as heart disease, lung disease, liver issues, people with neurological issues that are progressive, that are advanced, anybody that needs help and support, any family member that needs help and support is eligible for palliative care. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So not just cancer.
Not just cancer.
I mean, for the longest time, God bless us, we've been around for a while, but for the longest time, people would go, we made a donation to you. We made a donation to Cancer Society, because we used to get mixed up all the time, because the assumption was that hospice took care of cancer patients. Then that meant Cancer Society and us were one organization, which is not the case, because it could be anything, like I said. And that's a huge, huge one. I can't say that one is international as much, but definitely for our local population, there's a lot of people, even within the BRAC. Like, I wish we had a bit more support in the BRAC for the patients there, but right now we don't actually get many of the referrals from the BRAC unless they're a cancer patient. So even with us going over and doing some education there, even with the nursing home over there, the doctors still seem to manage it and don't really ask for a whole lot of help from us. And they have a lot of aging population over there that could benefit from some palliative care support. But
That's true.
I mean, They do it really well over there because they're a small community, so I can see how they feel like they do that anyway. But they could probably still use some support. But we're still kind of blocked into the only patients that we get from the BRAC are cancer patients. So a lot to be said at what we could do to change that myth in people's minds that anyone with any chronic life-limiting illness that are struggling with their symptoms are eligible for palliative care support.
Okay, and Paul in the studio, I think you had a question. I know you were asking me a question through my headphones. If you want, you can ask the ladies because I can't. I couldn't listen to two people at once. So if you want, shoot, ask your question. Paul got shy. You can WhatsApp me, Paul. You have both WhatsApp numbers. So I did check the WhatsApp, but we didn't have any questions coming in from there, aside the one from Paul that hopefully he'll send it. So we know now that palliative care and hospice care is not just for people who are living with cancer.
Correct.
It could be any illness, any condition that you're going through, and you require enhanced care, being palliative care. Then absolutely, you can have Jasmine come and provide that extra care for you.
Definitely,
free as well.
Yes,
let us mention
free.
That's a really, really big thing there. All right, and then the last question that I have here to debunk is: palliative care is only provided in hospices.
Mm-hmm. So many times I've gotten that call and they're like, oh, well, you referred to hospice. Oh, well, I don't want to come there. And they have this idea that if they're referred to hospice or palliative care, it means they need to be admitted to our service. They need to be an inpatient. I think it's because those ones see us more like a hospital. And so admitted to that service, being admitted would mean being admitted into some place, not just onto a service. And so that's not the case at all. Like we mentioned, we have the outpatient clinic with Dr. Sharp right now. So they can do an outpatient appointment and they could still be on our service, but get once a month or once every other month kind of visit check-ins with our palliative care physician. They could also be in the hospital and we'll go to the hospital and we'll check on them and we will work with the doctors there while they're an inpatient in the facility. They're still on our service. They're still our patients, but we're working with where they're at for their care. They obviously can be at home and be on our service as well because 90% of our patients are all in their home. We do provide pretty good home care for a long time. We have hospital beds, oxygen concentrators, wheelchairs, different devices. So whatever they need to make the care possible at home, we can lend them, bath benches, all those things. So we're able to do really good home support as well because there's nothing like being in your own home when you're dealing with all of that, surrounded by your family. It makes it so much easier and nicer to be in that home, in your own space. So yeah, you don't have to be in a particular facility to be on our service. You could be anywhere you need to be.
All right, I think I'd rather be at home as well.
Yeah.
Have all my comforts nearby.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah.
Did you want to add, Natalie?
No, I was just saying. I mean, I think, and it's really just sometimes just a personal preference. Like some people would prefer, oh yeah, come to me, come to my home. I'm here, I'm easy. But some people are just like, well, no, if you're coming to my home, that means I'm sicker than I am. I would rather, just come and walk into the office,
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, people just have different preferences and we can provide, care, whichever one,
Mm-hmm.
What are your office hours for you, Dr. Sharp, at HSA?
Okay, so right now I'm there on a Thursday. Thursday morning from 9:30. And so what you would do is just contact Jasmine and we will schedule the time for you and go ahead and so you just reach out to us at Jasmine for us to book that appointment to you. It doesn't go directly through HSA. You'd have to come to us first to do that. So,
okay. Yeah. Meaning, so you don't have to be necessarily referred.
No. You do
for
not.
Enhanced care.
No.
Then okay, excellent. Because I'm sure a lot of people are wondering, well, if I'm not referred, I can't reach out to, I can't get that enhanced care from Jasmine.
Right. So anybody who thinks they may need palliative care or thinks they have a friend or relative that may need, can reach out to us. One of our nurses will get in touch. We'll do an initial assessment to see if you qualify for the service, and then we'll figure out the best way for the patient to get that service.
And some of that could all happen on the phone. I mean, it could be a simple conversation of, okay, I'm still going to work, but I am having chemotherapy and I'm struggling with my nausea or how weak I feel afterwards. Could you help? Here, why don't you have an appointment with our palliative care physician? She'll see you, she'll assess and see how she does. She'll work with the doctors as well. So we do liaise back with like the oncologist and the person's primary doctor so they know what we're suggesting so they're not getting medicine from 10 different people. We're all working together and just collaborating well on that care. So it's pretty much including us in making the multidisciplinary team a bigger network.
Okay, excellent. Yeah. And we got a couple minutes left, so if there's any other myths that you want us to debunk, let's do it.
Well, I think that one thing I do want to say is that it has been shown, the studies have shown that when you add palliative care to care for any advanced illness, patients actually do live longer than those who are not receiving palliative care. And I think it makes sense, because if you are not suffering, if you are having a good quality of life as you're going through your illness, then the will to live is longer. And so what we have seen is that patients who are receiving palliative care do live longer than those who don't receive palliative care overall.
Yeah, you're able to cope better.
Yeah.
You're not stressed. Stress will kill you as well.
Absolutely.
If you're stressed out every day about this and worried every day, and whatever you see as normal life isn't coming back to normal life, well, then that's a problem. So palliative care really tries to help you have the best quality of life, the most normal as you could make it. Things happen while you're on that palliative care journey, so that you can and want to live longer. And she says that there are tons of studies out there that show the patients that got palliative care involved early, the difference it made in their overall prognosis, and like I said, just quality. Like there's so many things that can be done when palliative care is involved early, with education and planning and everything, that you don't get if you wait because you're afraid that it means you're giving up hope. No one's trying to take away hope. You can be on palliative care and have all the hope in the world and do everything, but still be supported.
And you don't have to suffer. I think a lot of people are under this impression that, I can take this pain, I can handle it. I can get through this. And with men, a lot of the time as well, I'll hear that, and it's, you don't have to suffer. The care is there for you. So I think that's excellent. You did say something that kind of sparked something in my head when you said we'll see if you qualify for the palliative care.
Yeah.
What could make somebody not eligible to receive the enhanced care?
Just depending on what the needs are. Sometimes it's more that, a patient may need a different kind of support. It may be that they don't need, physician nursing support. It may be that what we need to help them figure out is, social work situations, that kind of thing. So I think it's really just to kind of,
I think, just help her out there. I think it's more along the lines of, we don't provide financial assistance.
Right.
So if you come to me and say, I need you to help me pay my bills, I can't help you, but I can tell you who in the community might be able to help you pay your bills based on what disease you have and how you're managing. There's the Dementia Association, there's the Alex Panton Foundation, there's the Cancer Society, which you can get funding for different diseases or different issues or get support. So we can point you in the right direction, but we're not going to take you on our service if that's really your need when you need that financial or support in that regard, but we'll point you in the right direction. So those kind of cases, or if you're going to work every day and you're not having any physical symptoms, you're eating, sleeping, drinking well, no problem, and you say your family and you are all coping well, there's nothing much that we can talk to you about or help you with, then keep going to work and live your normal life like nothing's wrong, as best you can, because that's what we want you to do. And then if and when one of these symptoms creep up, whether it be the emotional stress, the psychosocial, or a physical one, then we would take you on. So we're not going to take someone that's well and able-bodied and managing and coping well, because what can we add?
Right.
But if there's something that you're not managing well, we're there to help.
Yep. Or sometimes, patients who are elderly and have difficulty leaving the house, we might get calls sometimes, my relative has, diabetes, high blood pressure. We just want somebody to come to the house and see him there. That's not kind of what we're trying to do. Because we do have excellent GP clinics and that do home visits and provide that kind of support. So we're not replacing that kind of care, because that kind of care is still important.
I got one question that came in via WhatsApp, and we got to answer it quickly. Okay. We got to go to the 1 p.m. headlines.
Yep.
Do you take in patients that are stroke victims and just being fed and dressed daily?
So absolutely, we do have patients who have had a stroke and do need some extra support. We are not able to provide care daily for anyone, but we can help we can help support the caregivers who are providing that kind of care. We can help, we help with teaching and education about how to best care for your relative. We can provide some occasional support, in case somebody needs a break, that kind of thing. But we unfortunately are not staffed well enough, and we're not.
Yeah, well, it's a free service, so we're not a long-term care facility, so we're not going to take someone in. Yeah. But if the family were struggling with it, we could come and get involved, see how we could make things better, any pointers we have. And as she mentioned, we could offer the respite care that, let's just say they did need a 5-day break, whatever. The person could come into the facility for 5 days, the family get a break, and then they go back home. But they have to be on our service, so they have to be someone that we know are struggling and need the help, and not just, we want to send everyone, Jasmine, because we're using donated dollars to make this happen. We want to make sure it goes as far as it can, so we use it wisely.
Yep. Or even need a break, like you are caring for your dad at home and you want to just go out to have lunch one day with a friend, we can say, okay, well, one of us can come and sit with your dad, dad, for an hour, so you can go out and have lunch and get a break from taking care at home. Yeah.
Oh, so that does work. Okay.
Yeah.
That's possible. Okay. Ladies, thank you so much for joining us today. Anybody have any questions, do go. You can give them a call. You can go to the website, jasmine.ky. You can see Dr. Sharp Thursdays
at Smith Road Clinic. Yep.
All right. All right. Ladies, thank you very much for joining us. We got the headline news, and then I have the Minimum Wage Committee up next.
Thanks.
From district to district, moving through the waters to Cayman Brac and Little Cayman. Your station, your voice. All things Cayman. One radio, many people. This is home.
Radio Cayman in the Cayman Islands.
Today's biggest news.
Radio Cayman. Your voice, your choice.
Local, regional, international. This is Headlines from Radio Cayman's newsroom.
Today's biggest news.
The headline news is brought to you by Health Services Authority.
With your latest headlines, I'm Felicia Rankin-Solins. The Ministry of Education and Department of Education Services announced that a nursery will open at the East End Primary School at the start of the 2023-2024 academic year. Parents may register online at schools.edu.ky/registration-forms. For more information, email the DES registration team at edu.registration@gov.ky. In international news, an area of tropical forest the size of Switzerland was lost last year as tree losses surged, according to new research. It means that a political pledge to end deforestation made at COP26 by world leaders is well off track. Some 11 football pitches of forest were lost every minute in 2022, with Brazil dominating the destruction. But a sharp reduction in forest loss in Indonesia shows that reversing this trend is achievable. An audio recording in which Donald Trump appears to acknowledge keeping a classified document after leaving the White House has been obtained by U.S. media. In the recording, the former president is heard rifling through papers and saying this is highly confidential. It was first obtained by CNN, but the BBC's U.S. partner CBS also has the clip. Mr. Trump has pleaded not guilty to federal charges of mishandling sensitive documents. These are your headlines. I'm Felicia Rankin-Solins. For the latest in news and information,
Follow Radio Cayman on social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Download the Radio Cayman app or log on to our website, radiocayman.gov.ky.
The headline news are brought to you by Health Services Authority.
The Health Services Authority has over 120 world-class physicians offering the most comprehensive range of specialist services on island. Our dedicated team of professionals provide the highest quality care in orthopedics, interventional radiology, women's health, geriatrics, and a host of other specialist areas. We are a JCI accredited organization with a proven record of excellence. At HSA, we are committed to caring for you. For more information, visit hsa.ky.
Radio Cayman is pleased to feature this special Sister Islands historical vignette brought to you by the Ministry of District Administration and Lands. Explore your history, explore your land, explore your Sister Islands. Captain Keith Parker Tibbetts, MBE, JP. Following the 1932 hurricane, like most young men growing up in Cayman in that era, the call of the sea was heard more strongly than any other. Keith Tibbetts Sr. of Cayman Brac was no different. After assisting with the rebuilding of the family home, resurrecting the family car, and helping other relatives and the community rebuild, he built and sold several catboats before going to Jamaica to seek employment as a seaman, and his long distinguished career got started on September 25th, 1935, when he stepped on board the schooner Admiral Sturdy, which his father built and was later sold to the Colonel family. A year later, he joined the Canadian banana boat Lady Somers in Canada. During his seagoing year, he visited several ports in England and made 11 trips around the continent of Africa, including a distinguished military career. This was part 3 of a special Sister Islands vignette series dedicated to Captain Keith Parker Tibbetts.
I'll be back. I've got 22 more days.
Radio Cayman is pleased to feature this special Sister Islands historical vignette brought to you by the Ministry of District Administration and Lands. Explore your history, explore your land, explore your Sister Islands.
Explore your history, explore your land,
Explore your sister islands, the ultimate staycation experience. Your culture, your freedom, the land that time forgot isn't gone. It's your sister islands.
Discover all that our sister islands have to offer.
Listen to the general public.
Your thoughts are just a telephone call away. 1-800-534-8255.
What the public is saying.
Let your voice be heard. And now,
Radio Cayman's Talk Today.
Good afternoon. Welcome back to Talk Today. I'm Kathy Miller, filling in for Sterling Dwayne Banks this afternoon. And we've got a pretty hot topic on this segment of Hot Today. You hear that? Hot Today of Talk Today. It is a pretty hot topic today. So we are going to be talking about the national minimum wage, and to give you a little bit of history of the national minimum wage. A national minimum wage of CI $6 per hour was introduced in the Cayman Islands back in 2015 when inflation was running at minus 2.8%. The national minimum basic wage in the Cayman Islands is $6 gross per hour for most employees and $4.50 for service employees. The rate of $6 an hour is established as the minimum wage for most Cayman Islands employees. Service workers who make gratuities earn a minimum hourly rate of $4.50. Special calculations apply for live-in household domestics as well as for employees earning commission. So that's a bit of history there on the national minimum wage and what our current minimum wage is. And in our segment of Talk Today this afternoon, I'm welcoming our guests, Mr. Lemuel Hurlston, Chair of the Minimum Wage Advisory Committee. We have Mrs. Maureen Nabi, Lead Research Methodologies Subcommittee on the Minimum Wage Committee. And then we also have Ralston Henry, ex officio on the committee, which I had to ask, what does that role really mean? What does that role mean, Ralston? Let us know.
Essentially, it means I'm there by virtue of my post within the government. So the work that I do is vital to the committee, and by that nature, I'm a part of the committee to contribute that.
Okay. I'm very happy to have you here today because I know you have some ESO info to,
yes.
to very validly give us, right?
Indeed.
All right. Mr. Hurlston, if you could tell us what your position really, I know I have you as the chair, but
yes,
what your role is.
Yes. Well, I for my sins, I chaired the first Minimum Wage Advisory Committee 7 years ago, and I'm honored to have been asked to chair the new committee. It's a subject that I find fascinating, and it's one in which we can all contribute to the national development.
Yeah, it is fascinating.
It is.
And Ms. Maureen.
Yeah, so the committee is made up of 18 people, and they're from all different sectors, backgrounds. I was placed on the committee by the Business and Professional Women's Association. I am a member there, and my role is to advocate for employees. So that's me and 3 others who are there to advocate for employees. You have employers, you have other interest groups, independents, and just by nature of the work that we're doing, I have a background in research and data collection. So I put my hand up to lead the Research Methodology Subcommittee, which is looking at the public outreach campaign.
Okay, which is part of this, what you're doing right now. Okay,
exactly.
Excellent. You're doing a good job of that so far, I would say.
Indeed.
You're welcome.
She
Absolutely.
is, yes.
And can you tell us who else is on this committee? You don't have to say necessarily names, that's fine, but...
Yeah, it's a good balance. We've got 6 representatives of employers. We've got 6 representatives for employees. We've got several civil society representatives, and the rest of us are independent, including the ESO representatives.
And in the different representatives of, let's say, employers, are we looking at all different industries?
Yes, we are.
Okay,
yes.
all right, excellent.
For example, the financial industry is represented, the tourism sector is represented, the construction sector is represented. So we have a good cross-section of stakeholders that are all well represented.
Okay. And I guess, would that be the same for employees that are on the
I believe so, yeah. If I think about it, we are from different sectors. Business and Professional Women's Association in its nature is a ton of women from tons of different backgrounds who get together and talk about social issues, work on them. And so just by my representing through them, that's representing, I would say, a ton of different sectors and people.
Okay, excellent. Now, some history of when the national minimum wage in the Cayman Islands was first introduced, which, Mr. Hurlston, was you.
Yes.
There's some history there, but also I'm curious as to why you said you were very interested in this topic. So what really brought you as well personally to want to be a part of the minimum wage committee?
Well, I suppose my background as a civil servant naturally led me to have an interest. But then, since I retired and went into the private sector, I saw the life of the private sector, and I was able to compare that with the life in the public sector. And so I think I was probably suited for the role 7 years ago. And it's fascinating. It's a wonderful way in which people can understand the responsibilities that we have as a society to be fair in our employment practices, to be fair in our compensation offers to workers. And, you know, the Cayman Islands is labeled not only as a money laundering center, but it's also labeled as a place that is addicted to cheap labor. And so we have to find ways of demonstrating that is not always entirely the case, and the evidence and the facts of our research and surveys will bear that out, that in truth and in fact there are a small segment of our society that is currently earning the minimum wage. You know, that $6 an hour. There are very few people now working for $6 an hour. Most people are gone way beyond that.
Oh. Okay, that's interesting. When you say way beyond, I'm like,
Yeah,
what's that way beyond?
Way beyond, yes. Yeah.
Okay. In 2015, what key factors back then contributed to the decision in which the original National Minimum Wage Committee, which you were part of, recommended the $6 wage?
That was recommended after a lot of research and analysis, a lot of public participation, a lot of discussion in town hall meetings, in focus group settings, in surveys. There was a lot of data collection, and on that occasion, we also had the advice and input of a representative of the International Labour Organization regional office out of Trinidad. They appointed us a consultant who came and visited and gave us a report. We published his report as an appendix to our report. And that document in its entirety formed the body of work that we carried out. We carried out that work over a period of about 9 months, and we submitted our final recommendations in February of 2015, and the minimum wage was introduced in March 2016.
And then okay, so it was introduced in 2016.
Yes.
Okay, I thought it was more implemented in 2017, but it's 2016.
No, 2016.
Okay, got it.
Yeah.
I guess I have a big question here that I've heard mentioned on other shows as well. I understand it to a degree. There's a talk about, first, there's a statutory minimum wage. There's a national minimum wage, which I understand that's what we have. And then there's a national living wage.
There's a
difference.
There's a big difference between a living wage and a national wage, and maybe I'll ask Ralston to have a word about that.
Yes. So the national minimum wage which we have is bound in law because it's the government that actually goes and create a legislation that dictates that employers cannot pay below that minimum wage. That, by virtue of its nature, means it has to be what we're doing here, engaging. It has to be collaborative. It has to look at all sides of the coin, which is why we have representatives from both employers and employees to come up with that national minimum wage. The national living wage is more concerned with the income needed for persons to earn a particular standard of living. And so it focuses on persons living in dignity, for example, persons being able to do things that are befitting of that society. Needless to say, because that just focuses on the earnings of a particular individual, it's not usually bounded by law because it doesn't consider the employer, for instance, what the employer is able to pay. So by virtue of dictating that, okay, you have to make sure that I'm able to buy what I want to buy, it doesn't concern the employer. So that type, the living wage is usually then not statutory. And usually what obtains in other countries is you have a non-governmental organization that sets the minimum wage and asks employers to sign on, and you give them a badge and things like that, that essentially guides their moral compass. So, for example, a bank can say, well, I am a living wage employer. And so that dictates or attracts a particular type of staff and things like that. But it's not bound in law, and it's the employer that much signs up. And once they sign up, then they have to pay that unless they're taken off the list. So the difference essentially is minimum wage, which is usually much lower because it has to consider the employer, and the living wage is usually much higher, which looks at affording earners a particular lifestyle.
Okay, thank you. Right, so that's more living wage is more about the lifestyle you have, and everybody's lifestyle is quite a bit different, right? Okay, all right. So the next question we got up for you, if you could share some of the information on the newly formed Minimum Wage Advisory Committee and what your main objectives are.
Yeah, so the committee has a mandate to look at the minimum wage and figure out which data points are relevant to creating a recommendation for a new minimum wage. One of the things that we keep emphasizing is that our role is just to provide a recommendation to government. We are not deciding on it as a committee. Our role is really to do all the research, speak to the public, and provide a report with a recommendation. There are actually two components to the work that we've been mandated to do. One is exactly what I said, and the second is to look at minimum wage as a potential solution to some of the challenges that Caymanians face when it comes to employment and being employed or choosing to work in sectors that have minimum wage or salaries that are related to gratuity schemes and things like that. And Mr. Hurlston can speak to this, but the previous committee had decided that given the vast nature of the task at hand, they would only address the recommendation for a minimum wage. They would not be able to, in good faith, look at that second point and try to find a solution. And they recognize its complexity. It's not just about minimum wage. There's so many other factors. And so that is something that our committee is also looking at, but just considering as potentially something that we may not be able to address with our recommendation.
How much are you drawing from the first minimum wage advisory committee that we did have, and in your first report from back in 2015? How much are you drawing from that to try to include?
Quite a lot. We're not reinventing the wheel. We are not starting from scratch. We are building on what was already built in the past. And we, for example, one of the International Labour Organization recommendations to Cayman was that there was a need to do a sort of a household expenditure survey. That was one of the things there was a gap in our data on the last time around.
Okay.
We have since then introduced that particular recommended survey. So we've accepted the recommendation. We've done the survey. Now we have that data to benefit from this time around.
Which is the household budget survey? Is that correct?
No.
Is it called
occupational wage survey?
Occupational
thank
wage survey. Okay.
Thank you, Rolf. Yeah, there was a gap in the data, and we have since carried out a survey to fill that gap.
Okay.
This time around, though, we've just recently completed a business and household survey. The results of that will be included in our final report on this occasion. So we're building, we're gaining knowledge, we're gaining experience, we're becoming a little bit wiser, and I think we'll be in a better position this time to improve on the not only the numbers, but on the validity and veracity of our recommendations. We can now back it up with more
data,
empirical data.
Right,
yes.
and once we have numbers and data, we know the direction in which to go.
Exactly.
Data, to me, it's so important.
Yes.
I'm a tiny bit confused because, Mr. Hurlston, you said once we did the household and business survey. So are you saying that from a committee standpoint, a survey coming from a committee standpoint?
No, that's a survey that was carried out by the Economic and Statistics Unit, and we benefit from that because they presented that information to the committee so that the committee could act on it.
Right.
And we're going to act on that.
Right. Well, that information is so important because it's not just to me, worldwide. Those your household surveys, what you spend in a household, whether you're a single person or you're within a family, that data shows how people are living, their minimum of what they need to spend to survive, right?
Yes.
So that's very important. And I know that there's a current household budget survey for the Cayman Islands. I think it ends, is it February next year?
Yes.
I should know. I did the campaign for the radio campaign for us. So
that's a year-long survey. It ends next February. It started in February. But just to highlight, in terms of the two surveys that Mr. Hurlston mentioned, we undertook those surveys purely for the benefit of the committee.
Okay.
So the business survey was purely on minimum wage. We drew a sample that was representative of minimum wage employers, and we sent out that survey purely for the benefit of the...
Is that the survey that I think it was just running, or is it's just about to end? There's a business survey out now.
No.
Okay.
So we have our original business survey, which is used to compute GDP. We did an additional survey for the MWAC, which focused on the minimum wage. We're still getting some trickle of data from that, but for the most part, we've gotten most of the data from that.
And how recent is that, those two surveys in particular that were done for the Minimum Wage Committee?
That was about a month and a half ago, or 2 months.
Oh, very recent then.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, excellent.
Remember, the committee was convened in February.
Right.
Or in late January. So we started up, we had it about in March, April, thereabout.
Yeah. Okay, all right. So as you said, it was started in late January. Mm-hmm. How often do you meet as a committee, and then what do you have to tell Cabinet when you meet?
Yeah, so we've been meeting weekly since the end of January. So I know you know the number. I don't remember, but how many meetings have we had?
I believe we've now gone 21.
Okay,
21 meetings. And at each meeting, it's very good. It's very productive the way that Mr. Hurlston runs things. But we've had a number of presentations from stakeholders and people who have information or opinions that would be relevant to what we're trying to figure out. A number of those presentations have been from the ESO. We've had the Needs Assessment Unit come and speak to us about their clients and their experiences. We've had the Department of Labor and Pensions give us a number of presentations on statistics they see. And so, the meetings have been great, and we're now moving into that phase where we're doing a lot of our public outreach, and the output of that is going to become the topic of our discussions as a committee.
Okay, and one of the major things in the public outreach right now is a survey that you do have. Can you tell us about that survey?
Yeah, so that survey is a survey that we have running. It's been running for about 2 weeks now, and we're grateful to the public for the response. It is obviously a hot topic.
It is.
We have, over 3,000 responses already, and that ranges, it's been great. That ranges from people across 5 different groups. So when you go on the survey, and I know you'll share the link, and I can say the link. But the most easy way to find it is to go to Minimum Wage Cayman on Facebook or Minimum Wage KY on Instagram, and you can do the survey. But when you hit the survey, you'll be asked to identify as one of 5 different groups, and that is a household employer, a household employee, a private sector employee, unemployed, or the other one is that you're employed, but it's either public sector or a student or whatever it may be. Once you choose one of those things on the survey, you'll be directed to a set of questions that's very specific to the group that you're representing and you're answering. And we've tried to make the questions as useful as possible for the output that we're looking for. But it really is just to get a sense of factors that need to be considered, data points that need to be considered from the public's opinion on what that number should be. We definitely ask, what do you think the number should be? But we also ask the question of employers and, and just the general public to say, if we're considering a new minimum wage, what do you think the most important factor should be? Should it be affordability to businesses? Should it be a living standard? Should it be protection of those who are most vulnerable in society? Just to gauge on what everybody thinks is the most important, to make sure that when we put our recommendation forward, all of that is considered.
Okay, you brought up some different things that I might not have considered when, in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, I'm going to go and do this survey. I probably wouldn't have brought up a couple of those different elements, the couple last ones that you mentioned. So for me, it's just inflation. That's just all I think about. Straight up inflation. I think we all, because we feel that probably the most.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's definitely a very hard one.
Yeah. We also, the one thing I will say on the survey, of course, there's structured questions, but we have an open comment box, right? And I've been seeing the comments come through, and obviously there's no conclusions yet. The survey is open till the end of July. But the scenarios, the anecdotes, the descriptions that people are providing, that qualitative data, so not just numbers, right? The qualitative data is going to help us inform our decision as well, our recommendation as well. I don't want people to get the sense of, well, ESO comes up with a number and, that's what the community can afford and that's it. The reason why the public outreach campaign is happening is because we want to hear the stories that are real life scenarios that are going to be considered as well.
And I think that's so important because we can say, okay, we mentioned before, well, not we haven't yet mentioned it. There's there's like a starvation line or a poverty line or a vulnerable line that you don't want society to go underneath, right? So I don't know, if we're looking at that and we know that we're going through certain inflation here or recessions happening. We know what life is like in the Cayman Islands, not necessarily somewhere else, but we're feeling what we're feeling in the Cayman Islands because it's very unique to us, right? So just to have that kind of data is very important, and to give your response on what you're going through in this survey is vital. And I would also encourage people, if you're going to answer this survey and then give the qualitative data that you've been talking about, Maureen, also look at the past report that was done by the Minimum Wage Committee, and I believe, Mr. Hurlston, that is publicly
available. It's available, yes.
And I think it's a great idea for people to look at that, reflect on what was done before, what was said before and recommended, then take this new survey and take your thoughts and kind of see, how you can move forward. Because it's one thing to just complain about things, but we also have to find that solution to go forward. And I'm sure there's lots that can be...
There is a lot.
Right, that we can get from the previous reports as well. So now we know about the presentations that you've done with different industries and different community partners. And are you having anybody come to you to say, hey, we need to understand what might be happening, that we might to relay this information better to our employees, or understand how this could impact our business?
Yes, the answer to that is very much so. We are in the process of scheduling several unique sector presentations. We're going to have a presentation done by the construction industry.
Okay.
We're going to have a presentation done to us by the hospitality, tourism sector. We're going to have a presentation done by the Chamber of Commerce. And we're going to have a presentation done by persons in the legal fraternity who have experience specifically in immigration and labor-related matters. So I think we're covering some good ground, and we're not going to leave anyone out in the process.
Okay, excellent.
One of the things I would also like to mention is that another avenue, if you are listening and you're a person or part of an organization that you feel needs to have a voice heard and hasn't been engaged, please email minimumwage@gov.ky. let us know that perhaps you feel you would like to do a presentation. You have valuable information. We are, as Mr. Hulson said, we have limited time in our meetings. However, we will, of course, respond. And if it is seen as an organization that represents a good number of people, we would love to have those representatives come and speak to the committee and schedule them in for future dates.
Okay. We have a phone call, I believe. We have a caller online, so let's take the call before we go to our commercial break. Good afternoon. Thank you for calling Talk Today. Oh, caller's gone. All right, so maybe the caller will call back after the commercial break. Let's take the moment right now and go to a commercial break, and then when we come back, we are opening the phone lines. You can give us a call if you have some questions about how this minimum wage process is going to be happening. You have some members of the committee right here, so join us back on Talk Today right after this break.
Yo, big up Massive. Listen up, we got some good news for you. Digicel is bringing you the hottest deal in town. Send top up hassle-free to Jamaica with the My Digicel app. No fees for a limited time. Me people, it's pure love from Digicel. Send credit from the My Digicel app any kiosk or go to a Digicel store and show your loved ones in Jamaica you care. They will stay connected, chat and stream without them fees. Spread the word. This is a big deal. Tell your mother, father, uncle, auntie, brother, sister and friend. Don't miss out on this limited time offer. Send top up to Jamaica today. Digicel, the ultimate connection.
Terms and conditions apply. Visit Digicel's website or contact customer support for more info.
You know you've dreamed of that Mercedes, the smooth leather, the style, luxury that feels so good. Ooh la la. With the prestigious 2023 Mercedes-Benz GLA 200 up for grabs in this year's Lions Club of Grand Cayman Benzorama fundraiser. This is your chance to make that dream come true. Tickets are $25 for one, 3 for $65, or 5 for $100. Benzorama fundraiser tickets are available with Lions Club members and various sales outlets. The Lions Club of Grand Cayman Benzorama fundraiser supports numerous community initiatives, includes sightseeing, Christmas delivery, restoration, and social services.
The hurricane season is here. Are you ready? If not, now is the time to prepare. Follow the Water Authority on social media for important announcements and survival tips throughout the hurricane season. You can download free preparedness brochures from the Water Authority's website, www.waterauthority.ky. Be aware, be safe, be prepared.
Freedom, Cayman Brack. Freedom, Little Cayman. Soft breezes, blue waters, no traffic. Unwind and rejuvenate your mind, body, and soul. Sister Island Staycations, a taste of freedom. Discover all that our sister islands have to offer.
You know, as a little girl, I dreamt of traveling to faraway places and foreign lands. I tell you what though, no more dreaming. This summer, I going flying with Cayman Airways. How blessed are we in the Cayman Islands to have a very own national airline? Girl, you can fly to so many international destinations without the hassle of connecting flights. On top of Jamaica, Cuba, and Honduras, you got non-stop flights from Cayman to New York, Miami, Tampa, and even Denver, Los Angeles, and now Panama. Going to be a little cafe con leche and Hollywood Squares for this old gal this summer.
Make your travel dreams come true with Cayman Airways, offering non-stop flights for non-stop adventures in Panama, LA, and many more places in between. For details and to book, call 949-2311, contact a travel agent, or visit CaymanAirways.com.
The record. For information that matters to you, the people. Hear from the government, the opposition, independents, and other experts on issues and solutions that affect you. For the record. Every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, tune into 89.9 and 93.9 FM for Cayman's Straight Talk Morning Show. For the record.
I invite you to join me for the record. You are invited to be a part of this interesting and informative show. Embrace the opportunity to dialogue with your legislators, policymakers, and those charged with policy implementation.
For the record.
Brought to you by Coca-Cola. Available across the Cayman Islands from Tortuga Distributors.
Accept no substitutes. Taste the feeling with Coca-Cola.
listen to the general public.
Your thoughts are just a telephone call away. 1-800-534-8255.
What the public is saying.
Let your voice be heard. And now,
Radio Cayman's Talk Today.
Good afternoon and welcome back to Talk Today. I'm Kathy Miller, filling in for Sterling Dwayne Ebanks this afternoon. And we have in studio with us members of the Minimum Wage Committee. And we have from the ESO, we have Ralston Henry, who's an ex officio on the committee. We have Mr. Lemuel Hurlston, he's the chair. And we have Mrs. Maureen Nabi, she's lead research methodologies subcommittee. And we talked about, right before the break, we missed our caller. So caller, I hope you're giving us a call back. Mm-hmm. Oh, yes. I have to interrupt what I was just about to say to give a live read that Ralston reminded me of. Thank you very much. Just to give you a real quick piece of information here, and this is coming from Kirk Market and Kirk Marine. They will be closed this Saturday, July 1st, for 2 hours from 3 p.m. to 5 p.m. in observance of the funeral for the late Captain Eldon Kirkconnell. So I have promised that I would put out that notice today. This Saturday, July 1st, 3 to 5 p.m., Kirk Market and Kirk Marine will be closed for 2 hours in observance of the funeral for the late Captain Eldon Kirkconnell. Okay, and to go back to our conversation, we had just talked about the survey that people are doing and how the public can give some of their feedback, their responses on minimum wage and what they think it should be via a survey. But is there any other kind of outreach that you're doing with the public? Any other way that you are consulting with them? Because the survey's online, right?
Yes.
Everybody actually does have access to the internet in the Cayman Islands, but not everybody's as easy with it. Yes.
Yeah. So there's a couple of things that we've done to make sure that everybody has an opportunity to have their voice heard. One of them is to actually have printed copies of the survey available at public libraries.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah. So if there's anybody that doesn't feel comfortable with going online or navigating social media, as sometimes that can be challenging, please go to the library, and they've been advised to assist if you need assistance with the printed version. Aside from the survey, there are also two other key opportunities for people to have their voice heard, and that would be a set of town halls that we'll be doing in July, and those will be district-based. Some of them may be combined. We're figuring that out. But we'll be announcing the dates and locations for those soon. And then a set of focus groups that we're also organizing that will look at some particular groups that have sector-specific challenges. So one will be specifically for those who are domestic helpers. One will be for those who work in service industry and are impacted by gratuities. We will also be engaging to get a group together that is underemployed. Currently, they fall into the underemployed category, and a group that is unemployed, and see, what insights and challenges can we identify from that conversation, so that perhaps we can find a way for minimum wage to address some of those things.
Okay, thank you. Now, if you want to give us a call, remember the numbers to call, which I don't remember, so I have to find my sheet here. 1-800-534-8255, 949-8037, 949-6990, or you can WhatsApp message or WhatsApp call us at 925-3261. Now, Mr. Hurlston, I know at the beginning of our conversation you had said you were part of the very first minimum wage committee, and this was implemented in 2016. It's like about 7 years later right now.
Correct.
From my little research that I've done online, most nations that do have a minimum wage policy, they revise this every year. It's an annual thing that they change, or maybe every 2 years, dependent, right?
Yeah.
Some not that long, right? It could be longer periods. It's a very long time for us. Why 7 years for us? Should we consider reviewing it a lot more often?
Well, we made a specific recommendation as to the timing of future reviews when we made our first report, and the government accepted the report in its entirety, tabled it in Parliament, released it to the public, so the public has access to it, but they put a full stop at the end of that paragraph and did not implement the recommendation. The recommendation has been sitting before government for the last 7 years. But among other things, COVID came along, so that 7-year got interrupted by several external factors over which we had no control.
Right.
So we are going to make similar recommendations on this occasion, and we're hopeful that the government will implement it on a more timely basis on this time around. Barring COVID again, we should be able to implement it on a more frequent interval basis this time.
Well, I hope to God that we don't ever have a pandemic like that in our lifetime, at least.
Yeah. So
because granted that when the pandemic happened, the prices rose for everything, everywhere, globally, right? And we are very much feeling this. Oh, I got to interrupt myself because we do have a caller online. We don't want to lose you. So, good afternoon, caller. Thank you for calling Talk Today. Hello.
Good afternoon.
How are you?
Okay.
Okay.
Good afternoon to you guys also.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Afternoon.
The concerning recommendations, what were you all recommending that the minimum wage be?
We have not yet reached the point in our work where we can name what any recommendation is likely to be like. We are at the stage of gathering information, gathering data, assembling that information, and then evaluating it. And then, arising out of all of that, we will come to a conclusion and make a definitive recommendation as to what we think the new minimum wage should be. But we haven't reached the stage where we have a number that we can recommend just yet. We have until the end of September to submit our final report, and by that time we would have completed our work and come up with a number.
Okay. Well, I would recommend when you all are looking into wages concerning what type of work people might be doing, that you all looking seriously concerning people who are working outside in the sun.
Yes, that's a very good point.
I think the government needs to look at that seriously, because these are only getting hotter.
Yes.
I think people deserve more than what they're making working in the hot sun. Thank you.
Good point.
Thank
Good
you.
point.
Thank you.
And caller, if you're, I don't know if you're still on the line, but I'm sure you can hear us on radio. Remember that I'm sure that you have a minimum wage idea in mind, and remember that you can access that survey that Maureen was speaking about, and you can also suggest what you think that minimum wage should be. So, although we might a bunch of us might come up with a number, and they're not going to pick the average of the numbers, right? It's going to be a whole lot of different factors that will determine that. And could you let us know what those different factors are that will influence that minimum wage rate that you're going to suggest?
I wish I could tell you all of the factors, but
major ones.
We'll start. Yeah, we'll start out by looking at the adjustments in the cost of living over the last 7 years. The Consumer Price Index is one indicator of where the economy has grown, and the Household Expenditures Survey. I believe we're now having a new basket of goods that's going to emerge within the next 9 months or so. That's going to give us a new consumer price index basket, and so we will have a better and more accurate idea of what the actual cost of living is in the Cayman Islands. The basket that we're using at the moment is out of date and has to be updated.
How much out of date?
It's quite out of date. Ralston, how far?
The last HBS was done in 2015, so the current CPI basket is based on that HBS.
And the minimum wage that came out of that came out after?
After, yes.
Okay, so...
So it's good to have that updated now as well.
But you said it'll be ready in about 9 months.
9 months, that's
and
right.
And you need to give your recommendation by the end of September?
However, by the time the government decides on an implementation date of our recommendation, one can never tell where we will be in the calendar by that time. It's possible that the government could wait until that information becomes available when determining the implementation date of the new minimum wage.
I
it's
think
possible.
that's very important because we're talking about the cost of living,
Yes.
and that is what that
That's
household budget survey will give us, right,
Yes.
with the new consumer price index,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
And if that is largely, if inflation is largely something that is concerning our cost of living, and we need that data, I think we should wait for that data.
Okay.
Because for me, it would be a fully uninformed decision.
Correct.
We do have a caller online, and then we have to take a break. So let's get that caller online while we have them. Good afternoon. Thank you for calling Talk Today.
Good afternoon, and good afternoon to your panel.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
So, just one hit on the cost of living. I would like to know in what areas that our government can help this island when it comes to the cost of living, when it all stems from the rest of the world and channeling to the Cayman Islands with our goods. I'll leave it with that question. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Difficult question. My understanding is that the government responded to the cost of living issue by establishing several policies recently, and those policies were aimed at addressing households and individuals who were experiencing high rates of utility charges, for example. There was a subsidy put in place to help with the cost of our utilities. And so there were several initiatives that the government approved and implemented within the last 12 months that were designed to ease the inflationary impact on the cost of living for Caymanian households. So I don't think it's fair to say, therefore, that the government has done nothing.
Nothing effective, in my opinion.
We may not,
go on, Mr. Holston.
We may not have done enough, but it's not true to say that the government has done nothing. I think the government has attempted to do something because inflation has been rampant, and the government has endeavored to do something about that. Whether that's going to translate into a permanent solution, an ongoing solution, I don't know, but it's only fair to recognize that the government has done something.
And
Go ahead.
Just to add, a review of this minimum wage is a critical part of that, just in terms of buffering the income of the most vulnerable in our society. So I think it couldn't be more timely that we're now looking at this so that we can increase the earnings of persons who are at the lower end of the income scale.
Right. Maureen?
Yeah, I was just to echo what you're saying. One of the things that really excited me when I joined the committee and we had a meeting with our initial minister was that he said to the committee that although our mandate are two key items, we have the opportunity to provide feedback from the public and from our conversations on topics that relate to cost of living, like, lifestyle choices, things like childcare, pensions, benefits outside of a dollar value that you make per hour. So what I would say to the caller is that if you have thoughts on what the government could be doing to alleviate the cost of living, please share those with us in this conversation. And you'll see that if you look at the 2015 report, there were a number of recommendations included in there that were related to topics that were not minimum wage, but definitely impacting the day-to-day lives and income and affordability of life for those living in the Cayman Islands.
Childcare is a huge one, so you hit that nail on the head right there. I think we might have another caller. I'm not sure. Paul, do we have another caller on there? He wants to go for a break. Can we do the break after the call? Can we combine the break with 2 p.m. news? Thank you, Paul. He wasn't going to tell me no. Good afternoon, caller. Thank you for calling Talk Today.
Yes, I had to call back. I just called you a few minutes ago.
Yes.
In regards to cost of living. I got a strong belief that there's not very much that our government with a capital S on it, can do for us when it comes to the cost of living, when we are getting everything from elsewhere. The only thing that I feel the government can do to help us is watch the duties that we are being paid at the port for these containers and so forth. Because for these owners of these grocery stores that have to go so far to make sure that we get food on our tables, I don't really believe that they can bring it in any cheaper and any better than they're doing. And if the government feel that they can help us, it starts with our duties at the airport and the port authorities downtown Georgetown with all of the containers coming with all our goods. So I don't care what government say about they're going to try to help us, sweetheart, sir, miss. They can't help us. This is coming from afar. Only one solution here. It is the duties that are we being charged at. But if we remove the majority of that duty when it comes to our food, then what revenue would the government have to pay their bills and their staff? See where I'm coming from?
Yeah. Yeah, makes
See where
sense.
I'm coming from? And so we must not sit back here and make believe the government can fix CUC, Water Authority, and the cost of living. I just heard in the news a couple of days ago where, we got to ease at the pump. Who cents for a gallon? 2 cents off of a gallon of gas at the gas station? Excuse me? We are paying $7.25 per gallon, and America is paying $3.27, $3.30 per gallon. And we up in the $7 bracket still. We are not going nowhere when it comes to government trying to make anything any cheaper for us here in the Cayman Islands. And I say we need to cut back on our population, because sooner or later there ain't going to be sufficient food for everyone to get on this island. And if the food continue to come the way it's coming right now, it's looking pretty empty on the shelves. And these owners are trying their best to bring in food here to this Cayman Island. And they have to face duties every time a container comes, and every time the air traffic come in with our stuff from the airport. Certain things come by air, and a majority come by boat. So I just want to tell Cayman today, don't sit down and wait for no big break with this cost of living here in this Cayman Island. Even if they a raise of pay would be appreciated, but let me tell you something, that raise of pay is not going to make it any better for us, because you got to raise the pay, the items go up higher. And I am so upset with this situation, but it's better than not having no food on our tables at all. And I have to say, we must appreciate what we are getting. And if we're accustomed of eating steak twice a week, you better change your mind to some pork and bean and rice and sausage on that table some days, because Cayman has a very high taste in everything that they put their hands on. And we look like we have no intention of trying to step down. We still want to live on that upper ladder that sometimes we can't even reach the top of the ladder, but yet we trying to. We need to cut back on our population. The current population is not making things any better for us in Cayman, as far as I am concerned. And I am a Caymanian, and I am a concerned Caymanian. I got children here, and I got grandchildren, I got my family, and I love my island. We need to nip this thing in the bud elsewhere, except trying to say government going to get a change for us in the cost of living. You know what a preschool is going to be going up now? One of those preschools going to go to $1,500 per month. That is almost 2 month mortgage.
Yeah, thank you, caller. And though I think I know in particular what preschool you are also talking about now. That's also that's a lifestyle thing. For you choosing to put your child in a certain preschool. So that, as you mentioned, if you're eating steak twice a week, that, and you don't want to cut back, that's a lifestyle thing as well.
Those of us who lived through Hurricane Ivan will also remember how little we need to survive on after a hurricane. And that taught us how little we actually need for day-to-day survival. And so, we choose a lifestyle, we choose a way of life that is second to none, but that cost, the expense of maintaining that standard has a cost associated with it, and the government has to face that cost itself.
Yeah, but Mr. Holston, the dangerous thing about that sentence that you said, that we know how little it takes for us just to survive and live, that takes me to communism. That takes me to the government saying, hey, you only need this, and this is how it's going to be, boom. And we all have different ambitions and reaches in life, right? So that's a very hard line to walk.
Of course it is.
Right?
Of course it is. I'm only saying that they taught us that there are certain fundamental things that happen to us in life that doesn't threaten our survival, because we can actually survive on less than we're speaking about.
Right.
And so it's only a relative comparison that I'm making.
Gotcha.
Yeah?
We have another call to take. If we can take the call, and then we'll go to a commercial break and headlines. Good afternoon, caller. Thank you for staying on the line and waiting. Good afternoon. Welcome to Talk Today.
Hello. Good afternoon, Catherine. And I'm not sure who your guest is.
I have Mr. Holston, Ms. Noreen Nabi, and Mr. Ralston Henry from the ESO.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, I'm not sure what the topic is today. I only heard the previous caller.
Minimum wage.
Yeah. Okay. Minimum. All right. Well, I guess this can go along with minimum wage, but I won't speak directly about minimum wage. What I will say is this, and it's to Mr. Holston's point that we were just talking, and the lady caller that called in just a minute ago, in regards to cost of living and fuel and whatnot. The reality is, and I can tell you this without any fear of contradiction, because I've done the necessary legwork and research to verify what I'm about to say.
Okay.
There are two things that the government can do immediately to reduce the cost of living in Cayman. Now, it might not be to the point or significant enough to everybody's likings, but it will be a step in the right direction. And that one is to put fuel regulation in place, because we all know that there is 100% pass-through cost for all petroleum products that our energy company uses, right? It's 100% pass-through cost. And it's been that way from inception. So it's not something that any government just got in and just found out. It's been that way forever. So they're all very aware of it. Number two, you talking about 47,000 gallons of diesel being used every single 24 hours in order to generate electricity, core electricity for the Cayman Islands. That's around 55, 60 million gallons a year. Now, one would imagine the people who are benefiting from the sale, purchasing, and handling of that fuel are those who are really benefiting. And if the government really wanted to engage in any activity to focus on the cost of living, you start with fuel. Reason why? We import everything, and everything has a fuel factor attached to it. So therefore, that's where you want to start. At least that's where I would start. Now, we know that the two major fuel providers here, I won't call any names, the two major fuel providers here are getting their fuel from the Gulf of Mexico, the U.S. flat prices. So those are the prices that we are stuck having to pay 100% of. Now, here is the most important part about this whole conversation. 75 to 80% of all refined products that is sold in the U.S. and in the Gulf of Mexico comes from the Middle East. So it has to have 8 or 9 stops before you get to the Gulf of Mexico. Therefore, you have 8 or 9 different compensations that have to be paid. Then it gets to the Caribbean, and it makes the Caribbean loop, and then we get some, which means we paying ridiculous amounts. Now, we have never put any initiatives in place to ensure that our utility company were purchasing not only the best quality and the best prices. Just not in place. We also allow them to pay on volume and not cost. We may know what they pay, but that's not what they're paying for. That's not what they're using as a structure to make payments to government. They pay on volume per gallon. We see where the government has given a couple of holidays to the utility company that it didn't really translate into savings to the local people by reducing it from 75 cents to 50 cents, and it didn't really make an impact on your bill, at least not to the people that it mattered anyway. So if the government really wants to do anything that's meaningful to tackle the cost of living, they need to set up a task force to monitor, analyze, and figure out where is the price point where we should be paying and where is the location where we should be purchasing and put aside all the political emotions and all of the people who are benefiting from the profit margins that we never see but we pay. So I just leave you guys with that, because I know you're talking about minimum wage and all these things, and this is a serious conversation that could be had. I mean, it took us 1 week to pass a law that said you needed a vaccination to get a permit. So how is it so hard for them to sit around a table to say, listen, this is a situation we need to focus on and we need to prioritize? So I'll leave you guys with that and listen in. Thank you.
Thank you so much, caller, for your thoughts. And wow, that you called me Catherine right there. We have to go to a break in our headline news. So right after that, we will be back continuing our discussion with the Minimum Wage Committee.
How can you make a classic BLT sandwich even better? Well, by adding tuna. The land meets the sea in Subway's new sandwich, the Tuna BLT, available for a limited time. The Tuna BLT is exploding with flavor. Imagine crispy, juicy bacon strips on top of tuna, fresh lettuce, and slices of tomato, topped with your favorite sauce and choice of freshly baked bread. Enjoy the best of both worlds with the Tuna BLT from Subway. Subway, eat fresh.
Mango season, you gotta love it! The Cayman Islands National Museum is pleased to feature, look here, the family-friendly Mango Fest at the museum. Saturday, July 1st from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. Purchase mangoes and other products by local artisans and specialty vendors. Local food, live music, mango peeling and eating competition. Take in the sweet and unique flavors of the long, round Julie mango and so many more. Look here at the museum on the waterfront. Saturday, July 1st from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m.
Your dream home starts with a vision, and often inspiration is at the heart of that vision. Brand Source Home Gallery's in-house designers are here to help bring your vision to life. Whether you're remodeling or building a new home, Brand Source Home Gallery is your one-stop solution. Explore their kitchen cabinets, sinks, faucets, bath fixtures, tubs, vanities, and more. Let Brand Source's designers help and inspire you with your next project. Call 623-5000 and schedule an appointment with a design expert at Brand Source Home Gallery, Dorsey Drive, Industrial Park, serving Cayman for 50 years.
At Doctors Hospital, we know life happens, and usually when you least expect it. So when unexpected medical issues arise, you need quality care close to home. Located in the heart of Georgetown, our accomplished team of physicians and medical staff treat minor urgent conditions such as migraines, chest and abdominal pain, shortness of breath, burns, broken bones, open wounds, and more. 24 hours, 7 days a week with no appointment necessary. Peace of mind is important when life happens. At Doctors Hospital, we're always here just for you. Need to speak to someone? Call 949-6066.
You know, as a little girl, I dreamt of traveling to faraway places and foreign lands. I tell you what though, no more dreaming. This summer, I going flying with Cayman Airways. How blessed are we in the Cayman Islands to have a very own national airline? Girl, you can fly to so many international destinations without the hassle of connecting flights. On top of Jamaica, Cuba, and Honduras, you got non-stop flights from Cayman to New York, Miami, Tampa, and even Denver, Los Angeles, and now Panama. Going to be a little cafe con leche and Hollywood Squares for this old gal this summer.
Make your travel dreams come true with Cayman Airways, offering non-stop flights for non-stop adventures in Panama, LA, and many more places in between. For details and to book, call 949-2311, contact a travel agent, or visit CaymanAirways.com.
Satisfaction is guaranteed 24 hours a day, whether it's music or information.
From Grand Cayman to Cayman Brac to Little Cayman, we've got you covered.
You ever hear a thing like that?
Radio Cayman in the Cayman Islands.
Today's biggest news.
Radio Cayman. Your voice, your choice. Local, regional, international. This is Headlines from Radio Cayman's newsroom. Today's biggest news.
Brought to you by Tropical Plaza on Smith Road.
With your latest headlines, I'm Felicia Rankin-Solins. The RCIPS can confirm that a senior politician attended the Cayman Islands Detention Center this morning and was arrested and formally charged with rape and indecent assault in relation to a criminal complaint of a sexual nature dating back to 2000. The accused appeared in court this morning via Zoom. In international news, parts of the tourist submersible that imploded on a deep dive to the Titanic, killing 5 people, have been seen for the first time since the incident. Metal wreckage from the Titan sub was unloaded from the Horizon Arctic ship in St. John's, Canada on Wednesday. Photographs showed metal pieces from the sub covered in tarps before cranes lifted them onto trucks. U.S. Coast Guard's officials have said the submersible's landing frame and a rear cover were found among the debris. Canada has surpassed its record for the largest area burned by wildfires in a single year. The blazes have burned more than 7.9 million hectares across the country, 21 times above the average over the last decade. There are currently 483 wildfires across Canada. More than 250 of those are considered to be out of control. The wildfires have also produced record levels of carbon emissions, with smoke reaching as far as Europe. These are your headlines. I'm Felicia Rankin-Solins.
Today's biggest news.
Radio Cayman. Your voice, your choice.
Local, regional, international. This is Headlines from Radio Cayman's newsroom.
Today's biggest news.
Brought to you by Tropical Plaza on Smith Road.
You know you've dreamed of that Mercedes, the smooth leather, the style, luxury that feels so good. Ooh la la. With the prestigious 2023 Mercedes-Benz GLA 200 up for grabs in this year's Lions Club of Grand Cayman Benzorama fundraiser. This is your chance to make that dream come true. Tickets are $25 for one, 3 for $65, or 5 for $100. Benzorama fundraiser tickets are available with Lions Club members and various sales outlets. The Lions Club of Grand Cayman Benzorama fundraiser supports numerous community initiatives, includes sightseeing, Christmas delivery, restoration, and social services.
They say variety is the spice of life. And that's why at Subway, we're introducing the new Boneless Hot Sub. Say what? The premium sub brings new ingredients like spicy breaded boneless chicken, French's crispy fried onions, and buffalo wing sauce, bringing a zesty and flavorful experience with every bite. Add some of your favorite veggies, cheese, and ranch sauce of your choice of freshly baked bread for the ultimate boneless hot sub. For a little spice in your life, try the new Boneless Hot Sub from Subway.
So good and tasty.
And make it a meal with a drink and chips or cookies. Subway. Eat fresh.
Yo, big up Massive. Listen up, we got some good news for you. Digicel is bringing you the hottest deal in town. Send top up hassle-free to Jamaica with the My Digicel app. No fees for a limited time. Me people, it's pure love from Digicel. Send credit from the My Digicel app, any kiosk, or go to a Digicel store and show your loved ones in Jamaica you care. They will stay connected, chat, and stream without them fees. Spread the word. This is a big deal. Tell your mother, father, uncle, auntie, brother, sister, and friend. Don't miss out on this limited time offer. Send top up to Jamaica today. Digicel, the ultimate connection.
Terms and conditions apply. Visit Digicel's website or contact customer support for more info.
You know, as a little girl, I dreamt of traveling to faraway places and foreign lands. I tell you what though, no more dreaming. This summer, I'm going flying with Cayman Airways. How blessed are we in the Cayman Islands to have a very own national airline? Girl, you can fly to so many international destinations without the hassle of connecting flights. On top of Jamaica, Cuba, and Honduras, you got non-stop flights from Cayman to New York, Miami, Tampa, and even Denver, Los Angeles, and now Panama. Going to be a little cafe con leche and Hollywood Squares for this old gal this summer.
Make your travel dreams come true with Cayman Airways, offering non-stop flights for non-stop adventures in Panama, LA, and many more places in between. For details and to book, call 949-2311, contact a travel agent, or visit CaymanAirways.com.
Prevention is key. Is your heart at risk? During the month of June, Baptist Health International is offering special pricing for cardiac CT scan for calcium scoring for just 99 CI to patients at high risk for heart disease, the leading cause of deaths worldwide. You are a candidate if you are 40 to 65 years old and have any of the following risk factors: obesity, current or recent smoker, family history of heart disease, high cholesterol, high blood pressure, or diabetes. To request an appointment or for more information, call 749-3304 or visit baptisthealth.ky.
Mommy, why can't dogs talk? Why do I have to go to school and you don't?
Why do you sing in the morning when you're bad at it? Why don't you brush your teeth when you take me to school? Why doesn't it ever snow here? Why does Daddy take the bus to work? Why are trees so tall? Why don't you tell me where babies come from? Mommy, Mommy, Mommy!
We're like a kid that doesn't ask a million questions before noon. CG Britke. Good like that.
Listen to the general public.
Your thoughts are just a telephone call away. 1-800-534-8255.
What the public is saying.
Let your voice be heard. And now,
Radio Cayman's Talk Today.
Good afternoon. Welcome back to Talk Today. I'm Kathy Miller, filling in for Sterling Dwayne Banks. And we're talking about the new minimum wage rate that is hopefully going to be coming to the Cayman Islands pretty soon. I think it's very much needed. And I do have members of the Minimum Wage Committee with me. We have the chair. We have Emil Hurlston, who's the chair of the committee. We have Maureen Nobby. She's lead Research Methodologies Subcommittee. And then we also have Ralston Henry, ex officio on the committee, and he's also part of the ESO. So Ralston has a lot of good information there coming from the ESO, of which I'm going to turn to you about as soon as I find my question. All right. When we're talking about minimum wage, I think there's positive impacts for us for, if we raise the minimum wage, but there's also negative impacts. Do you think you could explain what both the positive and negative impacts would be?
Definitely. I think that forms part of the foundation of something we had to discuss when we first convened as a committee. Just in terms of the positives, one of the core objectives of setting a minimum wage is to alleviate exploitation and to really benefit those most vulnerable. Something that you mentioned earlier in the program, cost of living, inflation, just the movement in prices over time. So one of the baseline that we looked at was a poverty or a vulnerability line. Officially, Cayman doesn't have a poverty line or a poverty rate. I think in 2007, however, we did do, or an assessment was done to try and understand what poverty rate would be in Cayman Islands. In 2007, the idea of that was we started on a benchline of the base mark of food poor to try to identify what nutrition persons would need to survive. And we went out and tried to find the food groups that would provide that nutrition, the most cost-effective food group that would provide that nutrition. Needless to say, that's controversial because the cheapest food group is not necessarily what persons want to eat, a lifestyle issue that you mentioned. And from there, we tried to build up the other essential elements that would be key in poverty, your clothing, your shelter. And that gave us a poverty rate. That was not accepted in 2007, largely because the issues coming out was those food items and things that were there as essential were not considered what was needed in a developed economy like the Cayman Islands. So there was some controversy there. However, in 2015, for the first report, the consultant from the ILO built on that NALC report, which is the National Assessment for Living Conditions. And what we developed in 2015 was a new poverty line that really accounted for inflation and other essential issues. And we buffered that by another 25% to come up with a vulnerability line. That vulnerability line essentially, like we said, has a buffer over the poverty, which means that there were persons that were not in poverty, but if there was any significant shock to their circumstances, whether it be a national disaster, a health scare, something significant in their family, they could fall below the poverty line or into poverty. And so for the committee at that point, we sought to use that as a benchmark, as the lowest line that we would set the minimum wage at. That's something that we've adopted in this situation as well. So in our preliminary presentation, we presented that to the committee to kind of set the tone for where we would not want to go below. And I think that's the positive of it, just in terms of looking at the minimum wage, you're really looking at persons who may have fallen through the crack, and you want to get those persons back into a position where they can survive and they can meet their basic needs. So that's the positive of raising the minimum wage. You really help persons who are exploited and persons who are vulnerable.
Is there a number for that vulnerable line?
I think in the last time around, the number was $5.22. That was in 2022.
Mm-hmm.
If you recall, the minimum wage then was set at $6.
Mm-hmm.
I think for assessment, I think Chair mentioned it in the last meeting. I think it's now about $6.50 for the vulnerability line.
So vulnerability line. So our current minimum wage is actually below what the latest assessed vulnerability line is.
Yes.
That is correct.
That's very alarming.
Interesting.
Interesting
That's
and
the
alarming.
price you pay if you don't review your minimum wage on a more regular basis.
Exactly. You're right, which
That's the
it needs to happen in government. Please listen to that recommendation. I believe we have a caller on the line. Good afternoon, caller. Thank you for calling Talk Today.
Hey, good afternoon. How are you?
Good, thank you. How are you doing?
I'm not too bad. One little thing though, I've been holding here now for 18 minutes. That's a long time for somebody that's on pay as you go. But
Nobody told me that. Sorry.
It's quite a long time for people that's not on a contract phone, just drawing reference.
Yeah.
But in regards to minimum wage, I have a question, please. Everybody's talking about the minimum wage is low, but does this also increase wages for people that are on a set salary or they work in the corporate sectors that are getting monthly salaries? Does this increase that as well, or just for people working hourly is the first question?
The minimum wage is set on a per hour basis. So, but if you receive your salary on a weekly basis, your per hour salary should still meet the minimum wage. If you receive it on a monthly basis, it should still meet the minimum wage. I suspect what you're asking about is in terms of contract work, where you might get paid for, maybe you work with a company and you get paid as a part of the company. I'm not sure.
Basically, well, I work on a monthly wage, so I get paid monthly. So even if I don't get paid by the hour. But in truth speaking, looking at from the outside looking in, the only people that are going to benefit from the hourly wage increase is people that are working hourly, or a majority of our permit holders, is what I'm saying.
No. So legally, there are limits on how many hours you're allowed to work per week, and over that limit is overtime. So it's from that limit that we calculate your hourly wage.
Right.
So even, just to clarify, even if you have a salary, and let's say your salary is $5,000 for the month or $2,500 for the month, what the ESO looks at when they come up with their data is, if you were to break that down to an hourly wage, what should it be? And even the minimum wage, the national minimum wage, nobody should be making under $6 an hour when you divide a standard, the amount of hours you work in a month, your salary by the amount of hours you work in a month. So you will still benefit, even if your contract says that you have a salary per month. The hourly wage, when it comes down to it, should not be below the national minimum wage.
Okay, but what I'm seeing here as well, and this is with a lot of the hotel industries, staff is being paid right at this point under the minimum wage, and their gratuities are being used to top up their wages, which I think is very much unfair. Some of the major hotels are only paying $4.50. Some is only paying $6 US. So it's okay to say that you're going to increase the minimum wage, but the first thing I feel they have to do is make sure that these companies are doing the correct things by paying people the correct way.
Okay, well, that's one of the responsibilities of the Department of Labor and Pensions. The Department of Labor and Pensions is the government agency that has responsibility under the labor law for the enforcement and compliance with the regulations. And the regulations require that department to enforce the law and the regulations. And so we've heard from them. They have said that they are doing the best that they can with the resources that have been allocated to them.
Well, sir, let me stick a pin right there.
Yeah.
It's a government excuse for every single thing, resources. There is so much foolishness that is going on in this country, and when it comes down to the bottom line, we don't have sufficient staff, or we only working with what we've been given, that isn't helping the people of the Cayman Islands. That's copping out.
I hear you. I'm only repeating what we have been told. And you can criticize it by all means, but that's the reality. Investigations take resources, and compliance and enforcement requires resources.
Being broken because people know that government doesn't have the resources to do these things, so they carry on doing what they're doing for years. So, it's okay for people to say, yeah, we're going to raise minimum wage, but if minimum wage, let's just say, go to $10. And instead of paying $10 CI, they're paying $10 US or $8 US. And there's no enforcement out there to make sure that these things are being done. What good is it?
There is one point, high caller, that I wanted to make. Anybody who uses a portion of gratuities to pay their employees must submit a gratuity scheme to the Department of Labor and Pensions on a regular basis to be approved. So there is that happening, and that is being complied with. Now, whether or not in reality, on the ground, something different is happening, there's responsibility definitely on those who are in government to enforce, but there's also responsibility on those who are associations, who have employers in these, employees in these circumstances, to educate employers, to educate them on what their rights are and what the channels are that they can go to that exist, to make a complaint, to ask a question and inquire and say, I'm being paid $8 US, I'm being paid $6 US, and I think I should be being paid $6 KYD. So what are my actions that I can take? We know that there's a lot of feelings about reporting employers and permits and all of those things. But this is why we're having this conversation. And the committee is looking at gratuities. And we want feedback on should that remain? That, you're paying $4.50 and then you can pay $1.50 from gratuities. Should it not remain that way? So we have an opportunity.
People doesn't want to complain because a majority of them are on work permits. And they know if they complain against the employee, they're going to find some excuse to fire them. And a lot of them don't want to go home because they're doing for their families back home, which I don't have a problem with. But, I mean, if you're going to be fair, we're going to be fair across the board, you know? And I understand that. But we can go on this subject forever. But my other thing is give government their due. A lot of people is kicking government about duties and stuff for goods that are coming in the country. But seriously, what we need in this country is some type of price control. I can go to one store and pay $3 for something, and two stores up the road, it's for $8. And to me, that's not fair. And if you go to the supermarket and you buy things, I've worked as a custom broker for many, many years. And if you go to the store, a lot of things that are duty-free, that no duties are charged on, is the most expensive things in these supermarkets. Why is that? It has nothing to do with customs. And as soon as you say to them, but, your cost is too high, or we have to pay government a lot of duty.
Very interesting. And, you mentioned consumer protection by way of price control. And again, that comes right back down to the issue of resources. What resources do we need to introduce price control?
Well, that's a good factor as well. I mean, even if we're looking at the produces and stuff that come into the country, we get the worst stuff ever that comes in here, and we pay the most extortionate prices for them. I remember, was it last year or this year, that the Minister Day and Honorable Makiba Bush went to Honduras because they actually went on the flight with me to go and speak to Honduras about bringing produce in here. All we've been hearing since that visit is cricket. It's like everybody's saying we need to find better resources, cheaper ways, but what's going on with that?
Wow.
Interesting.
Part of me thinks if it's the backbench that's coming up with the ideas, that they don't always get listened to. Thank you, caller, for your thoughts. I believe we do have 2 more calls online with us. So thank you for contributing your ideas to our discussion today. And if we can take the next caller. Good afternoon. Thank you for calling Talk Today.
Good afternoon, Ms. Cassie. Mario Ebanks here. How are you?
Great. How are you doing, Mario?
Good afternoon to your panel as well, to the Honorable Lem Hurlston and the team. I was certainly very privileged to work with Mr. Hurlston years ago in 2013-14 when we did the first minimum wage advisory committee when I was Director of Labor and Pension. And I'm so happy to see him back there again. I just want to say about Mr. Lemuel Hurlston, he's a brilliant man, a retired civil servant, and he's probably one of the fourth most decorated civilians in these islands. If you don't know, I just remind you, he has a commander of St. Michael and St. George, I think it is, designation, and that's only, I think it's only second after the Knight Bachelor, Knight Commander that we have, and we have, I think, three of them, Sir Basil, Sir Alden, and Sir Anthony. So I think that Mr. Lem is qualified and a very good thinker and good honest man for the job. So I congratulate him and the government for giving him that role as a volunteer and for his service over all the years.
Thank you, Mario.
Yes, sir. My pleasure. I just want to say that the objectives of the initial Minimum Wage Advisory Committee was that the $6 per hour minimum wage was really just a start. I remember the discussions we had, long days and long hours of meetings and discussions and research about that. And we resolved that, we realized that it was based on statistics and based on data and based on econometrics, but it was really just a start. And the idea was that every 2 or 3 years, at least every 3 years, it would be reviewed. That hasn't happened. So it's like you said, now we're into this thing 7 years or so, and we're playing a big catch up. The point I want to make in the question is that the minimum wage was not increased since 2016, but we also have another very important issue as well. It hasn't been increased since 1998, and that's the pensions contribution rate. Pension contribution rate, which also Labour and Pensions comes under that same Department of Labour and Pensions and the same ministry. The pension contribution rate is also important because, the minimum wage gives people a better wage while they're working, but pensions will give them something to rely on when they're not working. And so we need to increase pensions as well. Now, whether we can withstand a minimum wage increase as well as pension, I don't know, but we need to have something in place where we index these increases or we have regular reviews so that they don't drag on so long that when you do have to adjust them, the increase is so significant that it has potentially inflationary or cost of living impacts that are severe. But we need to do it, and I just want to leave that with Mr. Hurston to think about, because both of these areas are very, very important for the workers in the country and for the future of the economy. And I just want you to keep that in mind as you deliberate and prepare your report. Let's have some commitment, whether it's in regulations or the law, for a set review period, which is 2-3 years or whatever, for these things to be done and not just on forever. I do know that COVID caused some delay with, reviewing minimum wage and other things, but we still need to put in place something where it's more definite and not left to guessing. I thank you.
Very good points, Mario. We've taken note. The pension issue really was made worse because not only is the contribution in need of adjusting, but we allowed persons to make withdrawals from their pension funds, and if those withdrawals are not replaced, the whole purpose of the scheme is going to be defeated, and persons are going to be called upon to live on even less than they would have had the withdrawals not taken place. So persons really need to plan carefully and see whether it is possible for them to do some voluntary catching up, because most of the schemes do allow for voluntary contributions, so that if they made a withdrawal, they can voluntarily replace it by adding it back to their own scheme for their own benefit later on.
Good point. Thank you very much, and appreciate
Okay,
your time.
thanks, Mario.
Okay, sir. Okay.
Thank you, Mario, for your call. I believe we do have another caller. Okay, we don't. Okay. Somebody has sent me a WhatsApp message asking, they're just tuning in order for the public who are not computer literate to contribute to the survey that we were talking about. I know you said it earlier that the survey is available in a tangible form as well, not just online. Can you please remind people, Ms. Marine, where they can get that survey?
Absolutely, yeah. So if you aren't inclined to do the survey online, we have made printed copies of the survey available at your public libraries. So the staff there have been advised on doing whatever they need to do to support you to complete it, but that is available to anybody that would like that format.
All right. Thank you so much for answering that question. I think somebody is calling in during on the WhatsApp number, so I don't know why it's not connecting, but hopefully it will connect. If not, you can call 1-800-534-8255, 949-8037, 949-6990. Okay, now, we don't have another caller as yet, so I do have a couple questions. I know we're at the end of our show, but I got to get these questions out. So we're looking at what a possible minimum wage could be for the Cayman Islands, right? Are we at all looking at other countries within the Caribbean region that we are somewhat similar to? We are not on par with Cuba. We are not on par with Jamaica. Countries that we are similarly structured to. Are we looking at any of them that we can model our minimum wage from? Or it doesn't even have to be in the region. It could be elsewhere. And the reason I ask is because there's so many different countries with different structures of minimum wage. Some have over 100 categories of workers that fall into minimum wage. I personally don't think that we could handle having so many categories here.
True.
So is there any models that we have been looking at, and do you know of any that just will not work for Cayman?
Well, the answer is that we are open to considering any number of models and schemes. In the past, we have looked at what happens in the United Kingdom. We've looked at what happens in Canada, the United States, and throughout the region. There are 5 overseas territories in the Caribbean that belong to the United Kingdom. And we have some information and reports coming out of Bermuda and the Turks and Caicos.
But I heard you say on I think the Rush Hour last week, that I think Bermuda's went up to around 15.
$16.40 an hour in Bermuda now.
But I believe you said that you don't think Cayman would reach that.
No, because what Bermuda did, they created a hybrid model where they combined a portion of their living wage with their minimum wage and came up with a median, $16.40 a median. We have not considered doing that here. However, we are looking at the possibility of having different minimum wage for different employment categories. We're going to make that recommendation, perhaps. We're not sure of the categories just yet, but based on the public feedback, we could make recommendations that different categories of workers get different rates of minimum wage. That's possible.
Yeah, and one of the questions in the survey asks, do you think that a different category of minimum wage should be based on age? Should it be based on skill set? Should it be based on years of experience? Should there be a different wage for those that are older versus younger? So that is all open and on the table. And we're just going to take the feedback of what everybody thinks, combine that with what the committee's insights are, and come up with the best option.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you. That answers that. And one of the things that I've heard in interviews with you as well over the past week, not you, Ralston, so you're off the hook for this part. But I understand last time around with the Minimum Wage Committee, it was reported that the minimum wage primarily impacted non-Caymanians coming in to take lower paying jobs. There's already a big distaste towards expat workers in these positions. And we can't deny that. So I guess I'm fearful that if a majority of those surveyed or participate kind of have that frame of mind, that minimum wage doesn't really affect me, and that's for lower incoming, lower skill set people, not even Caymanians. Why does this bother me? I'm worried that that's going to negatively influence the minimum wage talk.
I hope it doesn't. There's a possibility, but I hope it doesn't, because there are 5 categories of persons in Cayman that are vulnerable to minimum wage fluctuations. Construction is one large area. The hospitality and service sector is another. Certainly the domestic workers fall into that vulnerable category. And so it's that lower income group of people that minimum wage primarily affects. And yes, it is true that last time around, the majority of those persons who benefited from the $6 minimum wage were expatriate workers, it's possible that that may be the case again this time around. From a human rights standpoint, though, we're not allowed to make discriminatory policies in relation to those who are non-Caymanians. If you're going to set a minimum wage, you set a minimum wage, and whoever falls into that beneficiary category gets the benefit.
I think one of the other key points to think about is that if somebody says, okay, well, those that are currently making minimum wage, those are mainly expats, how does that impact me? You're going to increase it. As a society, right, as a colleague in a work circumstance, would you not want to see your colleagues, your friends, your neighbors, your community be able to afford to eat and live, right? So the overarching belief that we are, I know there's a divide, but that should be driving the conversation, right? We definitely, of course, want to look at how changing minimum wage can support Caymanians, but even as a business owner, you're going to have maybe better skilled employees or more. Do you know what I mean? There's so many things that you need to look at when you're considering what the benefits are overall.
The mental benefit, period. The positive mental change that will happen for you, when you have a little bit more to survive with, to get on with. I mean, that's going to reflect in my attitude daily in my work, right?
Sure.
And towards other people and everybody else. So it's a very big trickle effect.
And just to kind of highlight, even though we have majority expatriate workers in these positions, there are Caymanians there.
Yes.
When we looked at the census data, we have about over 9,000 persons that we consider to be low or very low income persons. More than 2,000 of those are Caymanians. So it's not that Caymanians will not be affected. There are Caymanians there and they will be affected. And when we go back to the whole issue of humanity and so forth, we have to consider that these persons are contributing to the society as well. When we talk about one of the most vulnerable categories, household helpers, they are within Caymanian homes. They're the ones that are helping to take care of your kids. They're the ones that are helping to do other activities, your janitors, your gardeners. So they're not something to be discarded or something to be not considered, because at the end of the day, they're right in front of you, and if their circumstances fall, it's going to be in your face. And so it's something we have to consider, that it's not completely divided where we can completely ignore them to say they're over there and we don't see them. It's going to be there, and it's going to affect the society if we don't address it.
Thank you very much. Now we're 7 minutes over the show here. I barely got through even half the questions I wanted to ask. And I know there's so much even more that you want to say, so much that we can touch on. So I really, truly hope that you can come back, whether it's with me, whether it's with Dwayne. The discussion still needs to be had. I mean, you're getting information from this with the calls and everything. I thank you so much, but if there's anything lastly that you would like to share with our listeners that we didn't cover, that you think we have to get out in this session, please take the time right now and share that information.
Well, we just want to thank you for the opportunity. We consider it a privilege to be able to come in a public forum and hear the views of those callers that we have received today. We're very open-minded, and we are going to take this public consultation period seriously. And no one should feel that their ideas or their point of view is going to be ignored. But at the end of the day, we take those and we put them into a careful analysis, careful presentation, and the conclusions that we arrive at are going to be based on that empirical evidence. We can't make decisions on anything else. So we take the emotion out of it, look at the empirical data, and make our recommendations after our conclusions have been arrived at. And we do that with a committee that I think is fair and balanced, representative of all stakeholders. And so there we are. We appreciate the opportunity, and thank you for hosting.
No problem. Thank you. I'm glad you guys came with me today. Thanks for not putting this discussion off for Dwayne to come back, because I enjoyed having it as well. So,
it's been great.
If you could remind people of the survey, where they can access the survey again.
Absolutely. Yeah. One key point on the survey, it is anonymous. So if you are nervous about sharing your views, note that there is no identifying information at the the end, if you choose to, you can leave your name and email, and that's just to be entered into a contest for a gift card. But otherwise, all the questions are answered anonymously. You can find the survey link on our Facebook page, Minimum Wage Cayman, on our Instagram page, Minimum Wage KY, in your public libraries, and then shortly we'll be announcing and sharing information on dates and times for town halls in each district and some focus groups that we hope people will engage in.
All right, excellent. Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. Thank you to our listening audience for tuning in to Radio Cayman's Talk Today program. And you're not on with me tomorrow. I don't know who's hosting, so I guess you'll have to wait and see. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Talk Today is brought to you by Subway, open 24 hours in Countryside, Anderson Square in Georgetown, and Centennial Towers in West Bay. And by the Ministry of District Administration, Tourism and Transport. Explore your history, explore your land, explore your sister islands. And Cayman Airways. Call them on 949-2311 to